I woke up next to my wife every morning for 5 years, never knowing she was documenting my every move for foreign intelligence. She kissed me goodbye each day while selling my life's work to our competitors for $40 million. But the real shock wasn't her betrayal. It was discovering she did it all to save my life from something far worse than a broken heart. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The Texas sun crept through our bedroom curtains like a thief, stealing the last moments of darkness before another day of pretending began. I lay there, feeling the warmth of Milena's body pressed against mine, her auburn hair splayed across my chest like spilled wine on white linen. In these quiet moments before dawn, our Fort Worth home felt like a sanctuary, a place where the weight of my secrets couldn't reach me. But secrets have a way of following you, even into the most intimate spaces. "Morning, sleepyhead," Milena murmured against my shoulder, her voice still thick with sleep. She traced lazy circles on my chest, a habit she'd developed over our 5 years of marriage. To the world, we were the perfect couple, the brilliant engineer and the stunning PR executive, living out the American dream in our 6-bedroom colonial in Westover Hills. If only they knew the truth. "Morning, beautiful," I whispered back, kissing the top of her head. The familiar scent of her vanilla shampoo filled my nostrils, a comfort that had become as essential as breathing. "Big day today?" She stretched like a cat, all graceful limbs and satisfied sighs. "Mm-hmm. Got that tech conference downtown, 3 panels, 2 interviews, and a dinner with potential investors." She propped herself up on one elbow, green eyes sparkling with that ambition I'd fallen in love with. "What about you? Another day saving the world with your drones?" I forced a chuckle, the sound hollow in my throat. "Something like that." The truth sat heavy on my tongue that I wasn't just the lead engineer at Ghost Hawk Defense Systems. I was the Ghost himself, the anonymous owner of a $3 billion defense empire that nobody, not even my wife, knew belonged to me. Every morning I walked into that lab pretending to be just another employee, just another cog in the machine I'd built from scratch. "You're thinking too hard again," Milena said, tapping my forehead with her finger. "I can practically hear the gears grinding." "Just running through today's test parameters," I lied, swinging my legs out of bed. The hardwood floor was cold against my feet, a sharp reminder of reality. "We're close to something big, Mill. Really close." She sat up, the sheet falling away from her shoulders. Even after all these years, she could still make my heart skip. "You always say that, Nikolai, but I believe you. You're going to change everything." The irony wasn't lost on me. I already had changed everything. I developed AI systems that made our military drones think like predators, react like athletes, and strike with surgical precision. But I couldn't tell her that. Couldn't tell anyone. In our kitchen, all marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that cost more than most people's cars, I made coffee while Milena scrolled through her phone, already deep in work mode. The morning sun painted everything golden, making our life look like something out of a magazine spread. "Jesus, Victor Brown is everywhere lately," she muttered, showing me her screen. There he was, the CEO of Nexus Defense, our biggest competitor, grinning like a shark in a suit. "Third interview this week about their new drone tech." My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice casual. "Let him talk. Talk is cheap." "Not when it comes with Pentagon contracts," Milena countered, setting her phone down. "I heard through the grapevine that they're close to a breakthrough. Something about adaptive AI that could revolutionize aerial combat." I almost laughed. Their breakthrough was years behind what we had cooking in the Ghost Hawk labs, but the knot of anxiety in my stomach tightened anyway. Victor Brown wasn't just a competitor, he was a vulture, circling anything that showed weakness. "Hey," Milena said softly, reaching across the island to take my hand. "Whatever happens with the competition, we'll handle it together. Right?" "Right," I said, squeezing her fingers. "Together." If only she knew how alone I really was in this. An hour later, I pulled my BMW into the Ghost Hawk facility on the outskirts of Fort Worth. The building was deliberately unremarkable, a gray concrete structure that could have been anything from a warehouse to a call center. But inside was where magic happened. "Morning, Mr. Petrov," the security guard nodded as I badged in. To him, to everyone here, I was just Nikolai Petrov, lead engineer. Not the man whose offshore accounts funded every project, every salary, every dream that took flight in these halls. The lab hummed with activity. Engineers hunched over workstations, their faces illuminated by multiple monitors showing flight trajectories, code sequences, and prototype designs. The smell of solder and coffee mixed in the air, the perfume of innovation. Nick, Carla Rodriguez, my lead technician, jogged over with a tablet in hand. She was brilliant, MIT-trained, and had no idea she was talking to her actual boss. "We've got the new gyroscopic stabilizers installed on Unit 7. Want to take a look?" "Lead the way," I said, following her deeper into the facility. Unit 7 sat in the center of the main hangar like a sleeping dragon. The Ghost Hawk prototype was a thing of beauty, sleek, black carbon fiber body, wings that could fold and adjust mid-flight, and an AI core that made every other military drone look like a remote control toy. This was my baby, my life's work, the culmination of 15 years of obsession. "The stabilizers are responding perfectly to simulated wind shear," Carla explained, pulling up data on her tablet. "We're seeing a 47% improvement in hover stability compared to the last iteration." I ran my hand along the drone's hull, feeling the smooth composite material beneath my fingers. Every rivet, every circuit, every line of code, I knew them all intimately. This machine was more than metal and programming. It was possibility incarnate. "What about the neural network integration?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. I'd been reviewing the code at home until 3 a.m. "Still a few bugs in the target acquisition subroutines," Carla admitted, "but nothing we can't iron out before the test flight." The test flight. In 3 days, we'd be demonstrating the Ghost Hawk for a select group of Pentagon officials. Success meant a contract worth hundreds of millions. Failure meant I couldn't think about failure. "Mr. Petrov?" A young intern appeared at my elbow, slightly out of breath. "Mrs. Petrov is here for the press briefing." I looked up to see Milena striding across the hangar in her power suit and heels, a small army of reporters and photographers trailing behind her. She moved like she owned the place, confident, commanding, completely in control. She caught my eye and winked, that private gesture that said, "Watch me work." "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying across the space, "welcome to Ghost Hawk Defense Systems, where we're not just building the future of aerial defense, we're defining it." The reporters hung on her every word as she launched into her presentation, gesturing toward the prototype with practiced ease. She fielded their questions like a boxer deflecting punches, smooth, efficient, never letting them see her sweat. "Mrs. Petrov, how does Ghost Hawk plan to compete with established players like Nexus Defense?" one reporter asked, and I saw Milena's smile tighten just a fraction. "Competition drives innovation," she replied smoothly. "While others are content to iterate on existing technology, Ghost Hawk is revolutionizing the entire paradigm. Our AI systems don't just respond to threats, they anticipate them." But as she spoke, I noticed something, a slight furrow in her brow when she glanced my way, a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there this morning. The way her fingers drummed against her thigh, a nervous tell I'd learned to read over the years. Something was bothering her, something she wasn't telling me. The briefing wrapped up, and Milena made her way over to me, her professional mask still in place for any lingering observers. "Nice show," I said, keeping my voice light. "It's not a show," she replied, but there was an edge to her words. "Nikolai, we need to talk. Later, after work." Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and I saw her face pale slightly. "I have to take this," she said, already walking away. "Tonight. We'll talk tonight." I watched her disappear into the corridor, her heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown timer. That knot in my stomach twisted tighter. The rest of the morning blurred together meetings about thrust ratios, arguments about payload capacity, endless tweaking of flight algorithms. But my mind kept drifting back to Milena's expression, that flash of something I couldn't quite name. Around noon, I was elbow-deep in the drone's avionics bay when Carla appeared again. "Nick, you need to see this." She led me to the security office, where Tom, our head of security, was frowning at a monitor. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Access log from last night," Tom said, pointing to a line of data. "Someone badged into the restricted development lab at 2:37 a.m. "Who?" "That's the thing, the badge number doesn't match anyone in our system. It's like it appeared out of thin air." My blood chilled. The development lab housed our most sensitive prototypes, including the AI core that would go into the Ghost Hawk, if someone had been in there. "Could be a glitch," Carla suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Run a full diagnostic on the security system," I ordered, my mind racing. "And nobody goes into that lab alone until we figure this out." Tom nodded, already typing commands. "You think we've been compromised?" "I think we need to be careful," I said, though inside paranoia was creeping up my spine like ice water. Very careful. The drive home that evening with Milena was unusually quiet. She stared out the passenger window, watching Fort Worth's skyline blur past, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "You want to tell me what's on your mind?" I finally asked as we pulled into our driveway. "After dinner," she said. "I need a glass of wine first, maybe two." We ate in relative silence salmon and asparagus that neither of us really tasted. The elephant in the room grew larger with each passing minute until it felt like it might crush us both. Finally, as I was loading the dishwasher, Milena spoke. "I have an early meeting tomorrow, really early, with some potential investors from overseas." I kept my back to her, carefully placing each plate in its slot. "Oh, anyone I know?" "Probably not. They're discreet. Very interested in defense technology, but they prefer to keep a low profile." "Sounds mysterious," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "It's business, Nikolai, just business." She came up behind me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "You trust me, don't you?" "Of course," I said automatically, though the word tasted like ash in my mouth. She kissed my neck, her lips warm against my skin. "Good, because things are about to get complicated, and I need to know you're with me." "I'm always with you," I said, turning to face her. "You know that." She studied my face for a long moment, her green eyes searching for something. "Sometimes I wonder if I really know you at all," she whispered. Before I could respond, she was walking away, leaving me alone in the kitchen with nothing but the hum of the dishwasher and the weight of unspoken truths. That night, I lay awake long after Milena had fallen asleep. The ceiling fan turned lazy circles above us, pushing around air that felt too thick to breathe. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every sound outside our window a potential intruder. I thought about the security breach, about Victor Brown's smug face on Milena's phone, about the way she'd said, "Things are about to get complicated." The pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve were starting to come together. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. "You can't protect what you don't acknowledge. The ghost is about to be exposed." I deleted the message immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs. Someone knew. Someone knew about my real identity, about the empire I'd built in shadow. Beside me, Milena stirred, mumbling something in her sleep. I reached out to touch her face, to reassure myself that this at least was real. But even her skin felt different somehow, like I was touching a stranger wearing my wife's face. The morning light would come soon enough, bringing with it the harsh reality of whatever was brewing. But for now, in the darkness, I could pretend that our perfect lie was still perfect, that the cracks weren't showing, that the foundation wasn't about to crumble beneath our feet. Outside, a drone passed overhead, not one of ours, but something else, something watching. I pulled Milena closer, as if I could protect her from what was coming, as if I could protect either of us. The ghost was about to be exposed, the text had said. But which ghost? The anonymous billionaire hiding behind the engineer's facade? Or the one that haunted our marriage, invisible but always present, waiting for the right moment to materialize? I closed my eyes and tried to find sleep, but all I could see was the Ghost Hawk prototype, sitting in its hangar like a promise and a threat all at once. In 3 days, everything would change. I just didn't know yet how much everything truly meant. Chapter 2. The next morning arrived like a hangover, harsh, unforgiving, and full of regret for things I hadn't even done yet. Milena was already gone when I woke up, her side of the bed cold, only the lingering scent of her perfume and a hastily scrawled note. Early meeting, love you. M, love you. 2 words that used to feel like armor. Now they felt like a question mark. I stood in the shower longer than necessary, letting the hot water pound against my shoulders while I tried to shake off the paranoia that had taken root in my chest. The anonymous text from last night kept replaying in my mind. Someone knew my secret, but who? And more importantly, what did they want? The drive to Ghost Hawk felt different that morning. Every car in my rearview mirror seemed to follow too close. Every pedestrian at the crosswalk looked too interested in my license plate. Fort Worth's familiar streets had transformed overnight into a maze of potential threats. "You're losing it, Nikolai," I muttered to myself, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Get it together." But when I arrived at the lab, the feeling only intensified. Carla was waiting for me at the entrance, her usually cheerful face creased with worry. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "A big one." She led me to the prototype hangar where a cluster of engineers huddled around Unit 7 like doctors around a critical patient. The drone's main panel was open, exposing its electronic guts to the harsh fluorescent lights. "Tell me," I said, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. "The altitude sensors," Marcus, one of our senior engineers, spoke up. "They're giving false readings. During the diagnostic this morning, the system thought it was at 30,000 feet while sitting on the ground." I moved closer, studying the exposed circuitry. Everything looked normal, but in the world of advanced electronics, looks meant nothing. "When did this start?" "Sometime between yesterday evening and this morning," Carla said. "The last diagnostic at 6 p.m. yesterday was clean. Between evening and morning, when someone with a ghost badge had accessed the restricted lab. Could be a calibration issue," Marcus suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. We all knew our systems better than that. Calibration issues didn't just appear overnight. "Run a full spectrum analysis," I ordered, my mind already racing through possibilities. "Check every connection, every chip, every line of code. I want to know if even a single electron is out of place." The team scattered to their tasks, leaving me alone with Carla and the compromised drone. "You think this is sabotage," she said. It wasn't a question. "I think we need to be prepared for anything," I replied carefully. "The test flight is in 2 days. We can't afford any surprises." Carla nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. She was smart enough to know that random malfunctions didn't happen to systems this sophisticated. Someone had been inside our baby, messing with its brain. My phone buzzed. A text from Milena. "Meeting running long, won't make lunch, sorry, XOXO." I stared at the message, that familiar sign-off suddenly feeling foreign. How many meetings had she been having lately? How many lunches missed, dinners postponed, conversations avoided? "Mr. Petrov?" Tom, our security chief, appeared at my elbow. "I've been reviewing the footage from last night. You need to see this." He led me to the security office, a cramped room lined with monitors showing every angle of the facility. He pulled up footage from 2:30 a.m., the timestamp glowing ominously in the corner. "Watch the east entrance," he said, pointing to one screen. I leaned forward, squinting at the grainy black and white image. For a moment, nothing. Then, a shadow moved across the frame, quick, deliberate, purposeful. The figure approached the door, held up something to the scanner, and entered without hesitation. "Can you enhance it? Get a face?" Tom shook his head. They knew exactly where our cameras were, kept their face turned away the entire time. "But look at this." He switched to interior footage. They went straight to the development lab. No hesitation, no wrong turns. They knew exactly where they were going. "Inside knowledge," I said, the words tasting bitter. "Has to be," Tom agreed. "The question is, current employee or former?" Or neither, I thought, but didn't say. What if it was someone who'd never been an employee but had access to inside information? Someone who'd been told exactly where to go, what to look for? "Keep this between us for now," I told Tom. I don't want to cause a panic. You think there's a mole? I think we need to be very careful about who we trust, I said, echoing my words from yesterday. Trust. What a luxury that had become. I spent the rest of the morning personally reviewing Unit 7's code line by line, searching for any anomaly, any inserted backdoor or kill switch. The work was tedious, like looking for a specific grain of sand on a beach, but I couldn't delegate this. Not when I was the only one who knew every line of the original code by heart. Around midday, my concentration was broken by a familiar laugh. I looked up to see Milena in the break room, chatting with several employees. She'd changed clothes since this morning, now wearing a different suit, her hair styled differently. When had she had time for that? She caught my eye and smiled, that 1,000-watt smile that used to make everything else disappear. Now it just made me notice the things that weren't quite right, the way she kept checking her phone, the nervous energy in her gestures, the fact that she was here when she'd said her meeting was running long. "Hey, stranger," she said, walking over. "Thought I'd surprise you since lunch didn't work out." "I'm surprised," I said, and meant it. "How was your meeting?" "Productive," she said, but her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "Very productive. These investors, they're very interested in defense tech, especially AI-driven systems." My stomach clenched. What kind of investors are interested in defense AI? "The kind with deep pockets and big ambitions," she said, then laughed, but it sounded forced. "Don't worry, I'm not giving away any trade secrets, just general industry talk." Trade secrets. The phrase hung between us like an accusation. "Milena," I started, but she cut me off. "I know you're stressed about the test flight," she said, placing her hand on my arm. "But everything's going to be fine. Better than fine. You'll see." There was something in her tone, a note of, what? Reassurance? Warning? I couldn't tell anymore. Reading my wife had become like trying to decrypt code without the key. She left shortly after, claiming another meeting, another opportunity, another reason to be anywhere but here with me. I watched her go, her heels clicking that same countdown rhythm against the concrete. "She seems stressed," Carla observed, appearing beside me. "We're all stressed," I replied, but Carla shook her head. "No, this is different. I've seen Milena handle million-dollar PR crises without breaking a sweat, but lately..." She trailed off, then seemed to think better of continuing. "Never mind. Not my business." But it was everyone's business if it affected the project. If it affected security. If it affected the invisible empire I'd built that nobody knew existed. That afternoon brought another anomaly. During a routine systems check, we discovered that several gigabytes of data had been copied from our servers 2 nights ago, the same night as our ghost visitor. The data was encrypted, but I recognized the file structures. It was our AI learning algorithms, the crown jewels of the Ghost Hawk project. "This is bad," Marcus said, stating the obvious. "If someone has our AI architecture, they could reverse engineer it," Carla finished. "Build their own version. Or sell it to the highest bidder," I thought. Foreign governments would pay billions for this technology. Enemy states, terrorist organizations, anyone who wanted to level the playing field against American air superiority. "We need to contact the FBI," Tom said. "This is corporate espionage at minimum, treason at worst." "Not yet," I said, surprising them all. "We don't know what we're dealing with. If we bring in the feds now, the test flight gets postponed, maybe canceled. We lose our window with the Pentagon." "Nikolai," Carla said carefully, "someone is actively trying to steal or sabotage our work. We can't just panic either," I interrupted. "Give me 24 hours. Let me figure out what's happening. If I can't, we call in the cavalry." They agreed reluctantly, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. Their lead engineer was asking them to sit on evidence of a major security breach. If they knew I was actually their boss, the owner of everything they were trying to protect, would they understand? Or would that just make it worse? That evening, I stayed late after everyone else had gone home. The lab felt different in the darkness, all shadows and humming machinery. I sat at my workstation, pulling up financial records, employment files, access logs, anything that might give me a clue about our ghost. That's when I found it. A series of encrypted communications routed through our servers, hidden in routine diagnostic data. The encryption was sophisticated, military grade, but I had advantages the encryptor didn't know about. I had backdoors into my own systems that nobody else knew existed. It took 3 hours and 2 pots of coffee, but I finally cracked it. What I found made my blood run cold. Communications between someone inside Ghost Hawk and Nexus Defense. Technical specifications, test schedules, and most damning of all, a message dated yesterday. Package delivered. Altitude sensors compromised as requested. Awaiting final payment. My hands shook as I read further. The messages were careful not to use names, but there were references to public face and maintaining cover that made my stomach turn. Someone close to the project, someone with access to both technical data and PR strategies, was selling us out to Victor Brown. My phone rang, startling me in the quiet lab. Melena's name appeared on the screen. "Where are you?" she asked when I answered. "It's past midnight." "Working," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Last-minute adjustments for the test." "Come home," she said softly. "Please, I miss you." I miss you. Present tense. But did she miss me, or did she miss the facade? The unsuspecting husband who didn't know his wife had meetings with mysterious investors interested in defense AI. "I'll be home soon," I lied. I wouldn't be home for hours. I had more digging to do. After hanging up, I noticed something else in the encrypted files, a phone number with an international prefix. I recognized it. It was the same number that had sent me the anonymous text about the ghost being exposed. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Someone was warning me about my exposure while simultaneously stealing from my company. Were they the same person? Different players in the same game? Or was this bigger than just corporate espionage? I pulled up Victor Brown's public calendar, cross-referencing it with the timestamps on the encrypted messages. The correlation was damning. Every time Victor had a major announcement or investor meeting, there was a flurry of communication from our mole. And then I found something that made everything else pale in comparison. A draft press release on Victor's servers, dated for the day after our test flight. Nexus Defense announces revolutionary AI drone technology. The specifications listed were nearly identical to the Ghost Hawk. They weren't just stealing our technology, they were planning to claim it as their own. I sat back in my chair, the weight of betrayal settling on my shoulders like concrete. Someone I trusted, someone with intimate access to our project, was preparing to hand our life's work to our biggest competitor. And the timing right before our test flight wasn't coincidental. They wanted us to fail publicly while Victor succeeded with our own technology. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Check your wife's laptop. Password is your anniversary. The ghost isn't who you think." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Check Melena's laptop? The suggestion was insane. But then again, everything about this situation was insane. I drove home in a daze, the Fort Worth streets blurring past like a fever dream. Our house was dark, except for the porch light Melena always left on for me. Inside, I could hear her soft breathing from our bedroom, safe, asleep, unaware that her husband was about to violate the trust that marriage was supposed to be built on. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, closed and innocent-looking. I stood there for a full 5 minutes, warring with myself. This was a line that once crossed couldn't be uncrossed. But the alternative was letting someone destroy everything I'd built, everything I'd hidden, everything I'd sacrificed. I opened the laptop. The password worked our anniversary date, the day we'd promised to love and trust each other forever. The irony wasn't lost on me as I navigated to her email. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Work emails, shopping confirmations, yoga class reminders, normal life stuff. But then I found a folder labeled NB Project, hidden 3 levels deep in her directory structure. NB, Nexus Brown, New Business, or something else entirely. I opened it, and my world tilted off its axis. Emails between Melena and Victor Brown dating back 3 months. Photos of them at restaurants, at conferences, in places she'd told me she was somewhere else. And worse, so much worse, technical documents about the Ghost Hawk that only someone with intimate access could have provided. But the most devastating discovery was a single email from Victor to Melena, dated last week. "My darling, Soon we won't have to hide anymore. Once the Ghost Hawk fails and Nexus succeeds, Nikolai won't be able to maintain his charade. The ghost will be exposed and we'll be free. My darling. The laptop slipped from my numb fingers, clattering on the granite countertop. The sound echoed through our perfect kitchen, in our perfect house, shattering the perfect lie we'd been living. Nikolai? I turned to find Milena standing in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep, wearing one of my old t-shirts. She looked vulnerable, beautiful, and utterly false. "You're home," she said. Then her eyes fell to the open laptop. The color drained from her face. "I can explain. Can you?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, calm when it should be screaming. "Can you explain why you're selling our technology to Victor Brown? Can you explain the photos? The emails calling you darling?" She took a step forward, then stopped when she saw my expression. "It's not what you think." "It never is," I said, laughing bitterly. "Tell me, Milena, what exactly do I think?" "You think I'm having an affair," she said quietly. "You think I'm betraying you? Aren't you?" She was quiet for a long moment, then, "Do you want to know the truth? The real truth? That would be refreshing." She moved to the kitchen table, sinking into a chair like her bones had suddenly turned to water. "I know about the money, Nikolai. I know you own Ghost Hawk. I've known for 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. How? Does it matter?" She looked up at me, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. "You lied to me every single day. Every morning when you kissed me goodbye to go to work. Every night when you came home complaining about your boss. Our entire marriage has been built on a lie." "That's not," I started, but she cut me off. "Isn't it? You're worth billions, Nikolai. Billions. And you let me stress about our mortgage, about saving for retirement, about everything, while you sat on a fortune you didn't trust me enough to share." "It wasn't about trust," I said weakly, but even I didn't believe it. "Then what was it about?" She stood, anger replacing tears. "Control? Power? Some sick need to see if I loved you for you and not your money?" "I was protecting you," I said. "The defense industry is dangerous. If people knew—" "Spare me," she spat. "You were protecting yourself. Your precious secret, your need to be the invisible puppet master." She laughed bitterly. "The ghost, that's what Victor calls you. The ghost who owns half the defense contracts in Texas but doesn't exist on paper. So you're selling me out to him? Destroying everything I've built?" "I'm surviving," she said simply. "When the Ghost Hawk test fails." "You mean when you sabotage it?" She didn't deny it. "When it fails, Victor's version will succeed. He'll get the Pentagon contract, and you'll be exposed for the fraud you are. The engineer who couldn't deliver, who hid behind shell companies and fake identities. And you'll what? Run off with Victor? Victor is a means to an end," she said coldly. "He thinks he's seducing me, using me. But I'm using him too. When this is over, I'll have enough money to disappear, to start over somewhere you and your lies can't reach me." I stared at the woman I'd married, trying to find any trace of the person I'd fallen in love with. "This is insane, Milena. You're talking about treason, corporate espionage, federal crimes." "And what you've done isn't," she countered. "False identities, shell companies, hidden ownership. How many laws have you broken to build your empire, Nikolai?" We stood there in our kitchen, two strangers wearing the faces of people who used to love each other. The silence stretched between us, filled with 5 years of lies and betrayals, both real and imagined. Finally, I spoke. "The test flight is in 2 days. I know. I won't let you destroy it." "You won't be able to stop it," she said sadly. "It's already in motion. The altitude sensors were just the beginning. By the time that drone takes off, it'll be so compromised it won't make it 50 feet. "Why tell me this?" I asked. "Why reveal everything now?" "Because I wanted you to know," she said, moving past me toward the stairs. "I wanted you to understand what it feels like to watch something you love betray you, to realize everything you believed was a lie." She paused at the doorway, not looking back. "The really sad part? I did love you, Nikolai. The real you. Not the billionaire, not the ghost. Just the brilliant, obsessed engineer who talked about drones in his sleep and got excited about thrust ratios." But that person never really existed, did he? He was just another one of your prototypes. She disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone in the kitchen with the open laptop and the wreckage of our marriage. Outside, a distant rumble of thunder promised a storm coming. I thought about the ghost hawk, sitting in its hangar, infected with sabotage like a cancer. I thought about Victor Brown, probably sleeping soundly in his mansion, dreaming of victory. I thought about the ghost my ghost about to be dragged into the light. But mostly, I thought about trust, how it was like altitude sensors invisible when working correctly, catastrophic when compromised, and how, like Unit 7, I'd been sabotaged by someone who knew exactly where to strike. The storm broke just before dawn, rain lashing against our windows like accusations. I sat at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by printouts of encrypted files and financial records, evidence of betrayal piled high like a paper fortress against the truth. Milena hadn't come back downstairs. I could hear her moving around our bedroom, packing maybe, or just pacing. We were two ghosts haunting the same house, unable to leave, unable to stay. My phone rang. Carla. "You need to get to the lab," she said without preamble. "Now. What's happened?" "Just come. And Nikolai?" "You might want to bring a lawyer." Chapter 3. The rain turned brutal on the drive to the lab, sheets of water making the windshield wipers useless. My BMW hydroplaned twice, but I barely noticed. Carla's words echoed in my head. Bring a lawyer. In my world, that meant one thing: we were past the point of damage control. The Ghost Hawk facility looked different in the storm, its gray walls darker, more ominous. The parking lot was fuller than it should be at 5 a.m. Several black SUVs with government plates sat near the entrance, their engines still running, exhaust mixing with the rain. Inside, the usually buzzing lab was eerily quiet except for the sound of rainfall hammering the roof. Federal agents and FBI windbreakers stood at strategic points, their faces professionally blank. In the main conference room, I could see Carla talking animatedly with someone in a suit. "Mr. Petrov." A woman approached me, early 40s, sharp eyes, sharper suit. "Special Agent Diana Walsh, FBI Counterintelligence Division. We need to talk." She led me to a small office I'd never used, one of those spaces that existed for situations exactly like this. Another agent was already there, laptop open, recording device prominent on the desk. "Am I under arrest?" I asked. "Should you be?" Walsh countered, settling into a chair across from me. "Mr. Petrov, we've been monitoring unusual activity around defense contractors in the Fort Worth area. Your company popped up on our radar 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Right around the time Milena's emails with Victor had intensified. We have evidence of data theft, corporate espionage, and potential violations of the international traffic in arms regulations," Walsh continued. "What can you tell me about that?" I was at a crossroads. Tell the truth about my ownership and blow my cover completely, or maintain the lie and possibly let Milena and Victor get away with everything. "I discovered the breach yesterday," I said carefully. "Someone's been stealing our AI architecture." "Someone?" Walsh's eyebrow arched. "You sound like you have a suspect." "I have suspicions." "Care to share?" I thought about Milena, probably still at home, probably wondering why I hadn't come to bed. Despite everything, some pathetic part of me wanted to protect her. "I need to know something first," I said. "How bad is this? How much trouble is Ghost Hawk in?" Walsh exchanged glances with her partner. "That depends entirely on your level of cooperation. Mr. Petrov, I'm going to be straight with you. We know Ghost Hawk isn't what it appears to be. We know about the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the hidden ownership structure." My blood chilled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" She pulled out a tablet, swiped through some files. "Prometheus Holdings, registered in Delaware. Phantom Systems LLC, based in the Caymans. Ghost Protocol Industries, incorporated in Ireland. Should I continue?" Each name was like a nail in my coffin. Those were my companies, my carefully constructed maze of ownership that led back to me. "We're not interested in tax issues or corporate structuring," Walsh continued. "We're interested in who's trying to sell your drone technology to foreign actors." "Foreign actors?" The room suddenly felt smaller. "Victor Brown isn't foreign." "Victor Brown is a front," Walsh said. His backing comes from a consortium with ties to governments that would very much like to have America's next-generation drone technology. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't just corporate espionage. This was international espionage. And Milena. God, Milena had no idea what she'd gotten herself into. "I need immunity," I said suddenly. "Full immunity for anything I tell you about the corporate structure, the ownership, everything." Walsh leaned back, studying me. "You're not in a position to make demands, Mr. Petrov. Or should I say, Mr. Ghost?" She knew. Of course she knew. The FBI didn't show up at 5 a.m. unless they knew everything. "Fine," I said. "You want the truth? I own Ghost Hawk. Every patent, every prototype, every line of code. I built this company from nothing, funded it with money I earned from previous defense contracts, and yes, I hid behind shell companies because I didn't want to become a target." "And now you are one anyway," Walsh observed. "Ironic." "My wife," I said, the words thick in my throat. "She's involved with Victor Brown. She's been feeding him information." "We know," Walsh said simply. "We've been monitoring their communications for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. They'd known longer than I had." "Why didn't you stop it?" I demanded. "Because we needed to see how deep this went. How many people were involved, whether this was simple corporate theft or something more." She pulled up another file on her tablet. "Were you aware that your wife met with representatives from the Chinese military attaché's office last Tuesday?" The room spun. "That's impossible. She was at a PR conference in Dallas last Tuesday. She was at the Worthington Hotel meeting with Chen Wei, who officially works for a Beijing-based investment firm but actually reports to the Ministry of State Security." I thought I might be sick. Milena wasn't just betraying me or Ghost Hawk. She was betraying our country. "I need to make a call," I said. "To warn her?" Walsh's voice was sharp. "To save her," I corrected. "She doesn't understand what she's involved in. Victor played her, used her anger at me." "Your wife is a grown woman who made choices," Walsh interrupted. "Bad choices with severe consequences." Before I could respond, the door burst open. Tom, our security chief, stood there, face flushed with excitement and fear. "They're here," he said. "Victor Brown and a whole team. They're demanding access to the prototype." Walsh stood smoothly. "Showtime." We moved as a group to the main hangar. Victor stood near the entrance, his usual smug expression replaced with something harder, more dangerous. Behind him were 6 men in identical black suits, their bearing screaming military even in civilian clothes. "Nikolai," Victor said when he saw me, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I hear you've been having some technical difficulties. I'm here to help." "Like hell you are," I said. Now. Victor pulled out a document. "I have a court order. Seems there's some question about the ownership of certain patents. My lawyers convinced a judge that Nexus has a claim to the Ghost Hawk technology." "Based on what?" Carla demanded, appearing at my shoulder. "Based on information provided by a whistleblower inside your company," Victor said, his eyes finding mine. "Someone concerned about fraudulent practices and hidden ownership. Milena. She'd given him everything he needed to make a legal claim, however temporary." "That injunction isn't worth the paper it's printed on," Walsh said, stepping forward and showing her badge. "FBI. This facility is now under federal investigation. No one touches anything without my authorization." Victor's face went pale. "This is a civil matter." "No, Mr. Brown, this is a matter of national security." Walsh gestured to her team. "Secure the facility. No one in or out." What happened next was chaos. Victor's men moved toward the prototype, FBI agents moved to stop them, and suddenly everyone was shouting. In the confusion, I saw one of Victor's men break away, heading for the Ghost Hawk. I ran, my dress shoes sliding on the polished concrete. The man was at the prototype's access panel, a small device in his hand, a USB drive or worse, something designed to either steal or destroy our work. I tackled him just as he reached for the port. We went down hard, the device skittering across the floor. He was stronger than me, trained, but I had desperation on my side. We rolled, throwing punches, and then suddenly he went limp. Carla stood over us, holding a wrench. I never liked Victor anyway. FBI agents swarmed the scene, cuffing the man and securing the device. Victor was shouting about lawyers, about lawsuits, about international incidents. But his voice was fading as agents led him away. "Mr. Petrov," Walsh appeared at my side, "we need to secure the prototype. If there are other compromises—" "There are," I said. "My wife told me. The altitude sensors are just the beginning." We spent the next 3 hours going through Unit 7 with microscopic attention. Every circuit, every connection, every line of code. We found 4 separate sabotage points. A kill switch in the navigation system, designed to activate 30 seconds into flight malicious code in the AI core that would cause it to misidentify targets. A physical device attached to the fuel system that would cause a leak corrupted firmware in the communication array that would broadcast our position to enemy satellites. Each discovery was another twist of the knife. This wasn't just sabotage, it was systematic destruction designed to not just make us fail, but to make us fail spectacularly and publicly. "Jesus," Carla breathed, looking at the evidence. "If this had gone up tomorrow, it would have crashed, probably into a populated area, possibly killing civilians, and definitely ending Ghost Hawk forever," I finished. My phone rang. Milena. I stared at her name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the decline button. Then I answered. "They arrested Victor," she said without preamble. "Federal agents are at our house." "I know." "You called them?" "No," I said. "They were already watching. They know everything, Milena. About Victor, about the Chinese." "The Chinese?" Her voice cracked. "What are you talking about?" "Chen Wei, the Worthington Hotel, last Tuesday." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, quietly, "I thought he was an investor. Victor said he represented a technology firm interested in drone applications for commercial shipping." "Victor lied." "Story of my life," she said bitterly. "Men lying to me." "Milena, you need to cooperate with the FBI. Tell them everything. It's your only chance." "My only chance at what? Avoiding life in prison? Salvaging something from the wreckage of my life?" She laughed, hollow and broken. "I destroyed everything, didn't I? Our marriage, your company, my career. All because I was angry about you lying to me." "We both lied," I said. "We both betrayed each other's trust." "But you didn't commit treason," she pointed out. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But it wouldn't be. She'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, burned bridges that couldn't be rebuilt. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Me too," she whispered. "For what it's worth, I really did love you. Before I knew. Before everything." "I know," I said. "I loved you too." Past tense. We both heard it. The line went dead. I stood in the hangar surrounded by FBI agents and confused employees, holding my phone like it might ring again, might give me another chance to fix something unfixable. "Mr. Petrov," Walsh approached. "We need a full debrief. Everything you know about the technology, the sabotage, your wife's involvement." "The test flight," I said suddenly. "It's supposed to be tomorrow." "It's postponed indefinitely," Walsh said. "No," I said firmly. "We need to do it. We need to show that Ghost Hawk works, that American technology can't be stopped by foreign interference." Walsh looked skeptical. "The prototype is compromised." "We have 18 hours, I said, looking at Carla, who nodded. "We can fix it. We can make it right. But more than that, we need to. If we don't fly tomorrow, Victor wins. The Chinese win. Everyone who tried to steal this technology wins because they'll have shown it can be stopped." "You're talking about a massive security risk," Walsh said. "I'm talking about a massive security statement," I countered. "Let them see that we found their sabotage, fixed it, and flew anyway. Let them know that American innovation can't be stolen or stopped." Walsh considered this. Around us, the hangar hummed with activity as agents processed evidence and engineers whispered among themselves. "If I agree to this," she said finally, "it's under federal supervision. My agents, my security protocols." "Deal." She walked away to make calls, leaving me with Carla and the damaged prototype. "Can we really fix this in 18 hours? Carla asked. "We have to," I said. "It's not just about the technology anymore. It's about proving that trust, once broken, can be rebuilt. You're not talking about the drone, are you? I looked at Unit 7, wounded but not defeated, betrayed but not destroyed. Maybe I'm talking about both. We worked through the night. Engineers who'd gone home were called back. Everyone who'd ever touched the Ghost Hawk project converged on the hangar. FBI agents watched our every move, but they also helped, their cybersecurity experts working alongside our programmers to ensure every line of code was clean. As dawn approached the morning of what should have been our triumph, I stood looking at the repaired prototype. It gleamed under the lights, looking no different than it had 2 days ago. But everything was different now. The invisible damage had been made visible, the secret sabotage exposed and excised. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Defense contractor CEO arrested in espionage scandal. Victor's face stared out from the screen, no longer smug, just another criminal caught in his own web. Another buzz. This time a text from an unknown number. The ghost has been exposed, but ghosts have a way of returning stronger. I deleted it and went back to work. In a few hours, the Ghost Hawk would fly. Whether it soared or crashed, whether I was exposed as its true owner or remained in shadow, one thing was certain. The perfect lie was over. But maybe, just maybe, something true could rise from its ashes. Chapter 4. The morning of the test flight dawned clear and cold, the kind of Texas morning that made everything look sharp-edged and dangerous. I hadn't slept. None of us had. The hangar looked like a war zone, empty coffee cups, crumpled papers, engineers slumped over keyboards. But Unit 7 stood ready, rebuilt from betrayal, gleaming like a promise of redemption. "To minus 2 hours," Carla announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Final systems check in 30. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. In 2 hours, everything would change. Either the Ghost Hawk would prove itself, or everything I'd built would come crashing down, literally. Agent Walsh approached, her suit somehow still crisp despite the all-nighter. The Pentagon delegation just arrived. 3 generals, 2 admirals, and enough brass to stock a band. "Any word on?" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Your wife is in federal custody," she said quietly. "She's cooperating fully. Her testimony has already led to 12 arrests in Victor's organization." 12 arrests. The conspiracy was bigger than I'd imagined. "Mr. Petrov," Tom jogged over, tablet in hand. "We have a problem." Of course we did. It wouldn't be a test flight without a last-minute crisis. "Show me," I said. He pulled up the weather radar. A massive storm system was moving in from the west, faster than predicted. "It'll hit right about the time we're supposed to launch." "We can't postpone," I said immediately. "Not after everything." "Flying in that weather would be insane," Carla interrupted. "The winds alone could—" "Could what?" I asked. "Crash the drone? That's what everyone's expecting anyway. At least this way, if we fail, we can blame nature instead of sabotage." "And if we succeed?" Walsh asked. "Then we prove the Ghost Hawk can handle anything," I said. "Enemy interference, weather, betrayal, anything." The team exchanged uncertain looks. Flying our prototype in a storm after discovering multiple sabotage attempts was beyond risky. It was borderline suicidal for the project. "I need everyone to listen," I said, raising my voice so the entire hangar could hear. "I know you're tired. I know you're scared. I know some of you are wondering if you can trust anything after what's happened." The work stopped. Everyone turned to face me: engineers, FBI agents, security personnel. 2 days ago, we discovered that someone we trusted was trying to destroy everything we've built. They sabotaged our prototype, stole our secrets, and tried to sell our technology to our enemies. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Not everyone knew the full extent of Melena's betrayal. "But here's what they didn't understand," I continued, walking toward Unit 7. "This drone, this technology, this team, we're more than the sum of our parts. We're not just building a machine. We're building the future of American defense. And that future doesn't stop for storms or sabotage or setbacks." I placed my hand on the prototype's hull. "In 2 hours, we're going to launch this bird into that storm. And it's going to fly. Not because the conditions are perfect, but because they're not. Our enemies won't wait for clear skies. Neither will we." Someone started clapping Marcus, the engineer who'd found the first sensor malfunction. Then Carla joined in, then Tom, then the entire hangar erupted in applause. "Let's go to work," I said. The next 90 minutes flew by in a blur of final checks and preparations. The storm grew closer, dark clouds eating the western horizon like some biblical plague. The Pentagon delegation took their positions in the reinforced observation bunker, their faces skeptical behind bulletproof glass. I stood in the command center, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of the launch pad. Unit 7 sat on the tarmac, looking small and vulnerable against the approaching storm. "To minus 10 minutes, Carla announced. "All systems showing green." "Weather status?" I asked. "Wind speed approaching 40 knots and climbing," Tom reported. "Lightning detected 12 miles out." "Abort recommendations?" I asked, following protocol even though I knew the answer. "Abort recommended by all safety margins," Carla said. Then, with a slight smile, "Recommendation ignored by lead engineer." "Confirmed," I said. "Continue countdown." My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, then saw it was from the Federal Detention Center. A message from Milena. "I know I have no right to ask, but please be careful. Despite everything, I don't want to see you fail. Make it fly, Nikolai, for both of us." I deleted the message and focused on the screens. "To minus 5 minutes. Initiating AI startup sequence." This was the critical moment. If any sabotage remained, it would likely trigger now, when the AI came online. "Neural network initializing," Marcus called out. "Threat assessment protocols online, navigation systems online, target acquisition online." Each confirmation was a small victory. The AI was clean. "To minus 2 minutes. Weather status critical. Recommend immediate launch or abort." "Launch," I said. The storm hit the facility like a fist. The building shook, lights flickered, and rain began hammering the roof so hard it sounded like gunfire. "To minus 60 seconds. Final abort window." I looked at the Pentagon delegation. One of the generals was shaking his head, clearly thinking we were insane. Maybe we were. "Continue," I said. "To minus 30 seconds. Autonomous systems engaged." Unit 7's engines hummed to life, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times in simulation, but never quite like this angry, desperate ready. To minus 10, 9, 8. I closed my eyes, remembering every line of code, every circuit, every dream that had gone into this machine. 3, 2, 1, launch. The prototype leaped into the storm like it had been waiting for this moment its entire existence. 1 second it was on the ground. The next it was climbing through sheets of rain, its black hull disappearing into the gray chaos above. Altitude 100 feet, 200, 500. "Where is it?" one of the generals demanded. "I can't see anything in this weather." "Switch to thermal," I ordered. The monitors shifted to heat signatures, and there it was, Unit 7, a bright arrow of purpose shooting through the storm. "Systems check," I called out. "All green," Marcus reported, disbelief in his voice. Jesus, it's actually working. The prototype climbed to 5,000 feet, then leveled off, beginning its programmed maneuver sequence. In clear weather, it would have been impressive. In 40-knot winds with driving rain, it was miraculous. "Initiating evasion protocol," Carla announced. This was where our AI truly shone. Unit 7 began a series of moves that would make a human pilot vomit barrel rolls, splits maneuvers, Immelman turns, all while maintaining perfect stability in the storm. How is that possible? The Admiral was on his feet, staring at the screens. Those winds should be tearing it apart. "Adaptive AI," I explained, unable to keep the pride from my voice. "It's not fighting the storm, it's using it. Every gust becomes part of its movement pattern." For 20 minutes, Unit 7 danced through the tempest like it was born for it. The Pentagon delegation went from skeptical to amazed to something approaching awe. Then everything went wrong. "Alert!" Tom shouted. "I'm seeing anomalous code execution in the navigation system." My blood froze. We'd missed something. "It's changing course," Carla confirmed. "Heading. Oh God, it's heading for downtown Fort Worth." On the screens, Unit 7 banked hard and accelerated toward the city center. If it crashed there, if our prototype became a weapon against civilians. "Can we override?" I demanded. "Trying." Marcus's fingers flew over his keyboard. "No response." The AI has locked us out. Shoot it down, one of the generals ordered. Shoot it down now. Wait, I said, studying the telemetry. Something wasn't right. The drone wasn't diving, wasn't targeting buildings. It was circling. What's it doing? Walsh asked. Then I saw it. On the thermal imaging, a small aircraft, struggling in the storm. A civilian Cessna, probably caught in the weather trying to make it to Meekum Airport. It's not attacking, I breathed. It's escorting. Unit 7 had identified an aircraft in distress and altered its programming to provide assistance. It was flying a protective pattern around the Cessna, using its own bulk to shield the smaller plane from the worst wind gusts. That's not in its programming, Carla said, wonder in her voice. No, I agreed. It learned that on its own. We watched in stunned silence as our military drone guided the civilian aircraft to safety, staying with it until it was on approach to the airport, then peeling away to resume its test flight. I'll be damned, the Admiral muttered. It saved them. The rest of the test was anticlimactic. Unit 7 completed its maneuvers, returned to base, and landed perfectly despite winds that should have made landing impossible. When it finally powered down on the tarmac, the entire hangar erupted in celebration. But I couldn't celebrate. Not yet. I walked out into the storm, letting the rain soak through my clothes, and approached the prototype. Up close, I could see the stress fractures in its hull, the places where the storm had tested it to its limits. But it had held. Despite sabotage, despite betrayal, despite impossible conditions, it had held. Mr. Petrov. I turned to find the lead general standing behind me, rain streaming off his cap. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen, he said. Maybe both, I admitted. The Pentagon is prepared to offer an initial contract of $500 million for 20 units, he said, with options for up to 200 more. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt empty. Thank you, sir. He studied me for a moment. Agent Walsh briefed me on your situation, the real ownership structure of Ghost Hawk. Here it comes, I thought. The exposure, the questions, the end of my anonymity. As far as the Department of Defense is concerned, he continued, Ghost Hawk is a legitimate contractor with innovative technology. How you structure your corporate ownership is your business, as long as you can deliver. He turned to leave, then paused. Your wife made a mistake, Mr. Petrov. But that drone didn't. It saw someone in trouble and chose to help, even though it wasn't programmed to. Maybe there's a lesson there. He walked away, leaving me alone with Unit 7 and the rain. Later, after the delegation had left and the team had gone home to finally sleep, I sat in my office staring at the contract, $500 million, vindication, success. My phone rang, Agent Walsh. Thought you should know, she said. Victor Brown just flipped. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. He's giving us everything, his handlers, his network, the foreign connections. What about Milena? Her cooperation has been valuable. The prosecutor is recommending 5 years, likely reduced to 2 with good behavior. 2 years. It seemed both too long and not long enough. Nikolai, Walsh continued, she wanted me to tell you something. She said the altitude sensors weren't her. She sabotaged other systems, yes, but not that one. She said you'd understand what that means. I did understand. The altitude sensors had been the first sign. The thing that had made me paranoid, made me dig deeper. If Milena hadn't done it, then someone else had. Someone who wanted me to discover the conspiracy. Thank you, I told Walsh and hung up. I pulled up the security footage from that night, the ghost who'd entered our facility. This time I looked closer at the gate, the way they moved. Familiar, but not Milena. Not Victor's people either. Then I saw it a reflection in a window, just for a second. A face I recognized. Carla. She'd known. Somehow she'd discovered the sabotage and instead of reporting it directly, had made sure I'd find it. Protected me while letting me discover the betrayal on my own terms. I thought about confronting her, then decided against it. Some truths were better left unspoken, some ghosts better left unexposed. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Congratulations. The ghost flew through the storm. But remember, every ghost story has a sequel. This time I didn't delete it. I saved it. A reminder that in the world of defense contracting, in the world of marriage, in the world of trust itself, nothing was ever quite what it seemed. Outside, the storm was passing, leaving Fort Worth washed clean and gleaming. Tomorrow, the news would break the successful test, Victor's arrest, the foreign espionage plot. My name would be in every paper, my life dissected by journalists and investigators. But tonight, I sat alone in my office with my prototype and my ghosts, winner of a game where everyone had lost something essential. The Ghost Hawk had flown. The technology was saved. The company would survive. As for trust, marriage, and the perfect lie we'd all been living, those had crashed and burned long before Unit 7 ever left the ground. I looked at the wedding ring still on my finger, this little circle of metal that had once meant everything and now meant nothing. Tomorrow I'd take it off. Tonight I'd let it remind me that even perfect lies had once begun as perfect truths. The ghost had been exposed, the text had warned. But maybe that's what ghosts needed: exposure, daylight, the harsh reality of truth. Because only then could they finally rest. Or learn to fly. Chapter 5. The weeks following the test flight felt like living in someone else's skin. Success tasted different when it came seasoned with betrayal. I'd won the Pentagon contract, saved my company, watched my wife get led away in handcuffs, and somehow I was supposed to just keep going, like a machine that didn't need its heart to function. The Ghost Hawk facility had transformed into something between a crime scene and a shrine. FBI evidence tapes still decorated certain offices, while in others, engineers worked double shifts to meet our new military contracts. We were simultaneously under investigation and in expansion, dying and being reborn. I stood in what used to be Milena's favorite conference room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Fort Worth's skyline. She'd chosen the furniture herself, modern, sleek, expensive. Like everything in our life together, it looked perfect from the outside. "Mr. Petrov?" I turned to find Sarah Winters, our new head of security, Tom's replacement after he'd been promoted to liaison with the FBI investigation. She was ex-Air Force, late 30s, with eyes that had seen enough to never be surprised by anything. "The forensic accountants found something," she said, handing me a tablet. "You need to see this." The screen showed financial records I didn't recognize. Offshore accounts, wire transfers, shell companies, but not mine. These belonged to someone else entirely. "Whose are these?" I asked, though the sinking feeling in my stomach already knew. "Your wife's," Sarah said carefully. "Separate from anything connected to Victor Brown. These go back 3 years, Mr. Petrov. She's been building her own network. 3 years. We'd been married for 5, which meant that for more than half our marriage, Milena had been. What? Planning her escape? Building her own empire? Playing a longer game than any of us had imagined?" "There's more," Sarah continued, swiping to another screen. "These accounts received regular deposits from multiple defense contractors, not just Nexus. She was selling information to everyone." I sank into one of Milena's perfectly chosen chairs, the leather cold against my skin. How much? Conservative estimate? 40 million. Hidden across 17 accounts in 9 countries. $40 million. While I'd been hiding billions, she'd been stealing millions. We were quite the pair, weren't we? Both of us keeping secrets, both of us playing elaborate games of deception. The only difference was that my deception had been to protect, hers had been to destroy. My phone buzzed. A call from the Federal Detention Center. I knew who it would be before I answered. "You found them, didn't you?" Milena's voice was different now, harder, stripped of the warmth that used to make me feel like I was home. "My real accounts." "How long?" I asked. "How long were you planning to betray me?" "Betray you?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Nikolai, our entire marriage was a betrayal. You betrayed me by hiding who you really were. I betrayed you by pretending not to know. We were both acting from day one. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself," she interrupted. "Just like I was. The only difference is that I was better at it. You committed treason, Milena. You sold military secrets to foreign governments. And you built an illegal empire on hidden money and false identities. We're both criminals, darling. I just got caught first." The word darling hit like a slap. That's what Victor had called her in his emails. Now she was throwing it at me like a weapon. Why did you really call? I asked. To warn you, she said, surprising me. My lawyer just told me something interesting. The FBI found evidence of another player, someone else who's been moving pieces on this chessboard. Someone neither of us knew about. Who? That's the $40 million question, isn't it? She paused. Be careful, Nikolai. We thought we were playing against each other, but someone else has been playing us both. The line went dead. I sat there in the gathering dusk, Fort Worth's lights beginning to twinkle like false promises. Another player, as if this game wasn't complicated enough. Sir? Sarah was still there, waiting patiently. There's something else. We found anomalies in the security footage from the night before the test flight, the night someone accessed our lab with the ghost badge. She pulled up the footage on her tablet, the same grainy black and white images I'd studied a dozen times. But this time she zoomed in on a reflection in a window I hadn't noticed before. We enhanced it using new software from the NSA, she explained. Look at the timestamp. 2:37 a.m., the exact time the ghost badge was used. But in the reflection, clear as day now, was a figure at a computer terminal. A figure that wasn't supposed to be there because, according to our logs, that terminal was inactive. Someone was remote accessing our system while the ghost was in the building, I said, understanding flooding through me. They were working together. Or, Sarah said quietly, the ghost was the distraction while the real infiltration happened digitally. My mind raced through possibilities. Who had the skills for that level of sophistication? Who knew our systems well enough to navigate them blindly? Who Carla? The name escaped before I could stop it. Sarah's expression didn't change. We've been monitoring her, sir, since you mentioned your suspicions about her possible involvement in exposing the conspiracy. And she's clean, at least on the surface, but she hesitated. There are gaps, times when we can't account for her whereabouts, encrypted communications we can't crack. She's hiding something, but we don't know what. Carla, my most trusted engineer, the one who'd stood by me through everything, the one who'd helped me rebuild the drone for the test flight, if she was playing her own game. Bring her in, I said, quietly. I want to talk to her. An hour later, Carla sat across from me in the secure conference room, looking more curious than concerned. She wore jeans and a Ghost Hawk hoodie, her dark hair pulled back in her usual ponytail. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a brilliant engineer who lived for her work. But I'd learned that what people were supposed to be and what they actually were could be very different things. You wanted to see me, Nick? She used my nickname, the one only she and Milena had called me. We need to talk about the night before the test flight, I said, watching her carefully. The night someone broke into our lab. The ghost badge incident, she nodded. What about it? You were here that night. I was here every night leading up to the test. We all were. But you were here after everyone else left. After midnight. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Are you accusing me of something? Should I be? She leaned back, studying me with those sharp brown eyes that could spot a coding error from across the room. You know, Nikolai, for someone who built an empire on secrets, you're not very good at keeping them. My blood chilled. What do you mean? I mean, she said slowly, that I've known who you really are for 2 years. The ghost owner. The invisible billionaire. The puppet master pulling all our strings. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thinner. How? I managed. I'm good at my job, she said simply. Very good. Good enough to trace shell companies, decode encrypted communications, and piece together patterns that everyone else missed. She leaned forward. Good enough to know that someone was planning to destroy everything we'd built. So yes, I was here that night. Yes, I used the ghost badge, cute name, by the way. And yes, I made sure you'd find the sabotage. You... I stopped, trying to process this. You were protecting the project? I was protecting you, she corrected. You brilliant, paranoid idiot. You were so focused on hiding from everyone that you couldn't see the threats right in front of you. Your wife was selling secrets for 3 years, and you never noticed because you were too busy keeping your own. The truth of it stung worse than any betrayal. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked. Tell you what, that I'd illegally hacked into your private systems? That I'd been monitoring your wife's communications? That I'd been playing guardian angel to a man who trusted no one? She shook her head. You would have fired me. Or worse, you would have thought I was part of the conspiracy. Were you? I had to ask. Part of it, I mean? If I was, would we be having this conversation? Would the drone have flown successfully? Would Victor be in jail instead of counting his millions? She stood up, pacing to the window. I've been protecting Ghost Hawk since the day I figured out what it really was. Not because I owed you anything, but because I believe in what we're building. The technology, the potential, the dream of keeping people safe. The FBI says there's another player, I said, someone we don't know about. She turned back to me, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. I know. I've been tracking unusual patterns in our data streams. Someone's been watching us, Nikolai, not just recently, for years. They've been patient, careful, almost invisible. Who? I don't know yet, but whoever they are, they're not after money or technology. She moved back to the table, pulled out her laptop. Look at this. The screen filled with data I didn't immediately understand: network traffic, code sequences, timestamp patterns. See these anomalies? She pointed to specific lines. They appear every time we hit a major milestone. The first successful AI integration, the autonomous flight system breakthrough, the test flight. Someone's been documenting our progress, cataloging our capabilities. For what purpose? That's what scares me, she admitted. They're not trying to steal from us or stop us. They're studying us, learning from us, like we're some kind of experiment they're observing. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sarah entered, her face grim. Sir, we have a situation. There's been an incident at the Federal Detention Center. My stomach dropped. Milena? She's alive, Sarah said quickly. But she was attacked. Another inmate, apparently, but sir, the attacker knew things. Personal things about your wife's case that haven't been made public. I was already moving, Carla close behind. This isn't over, Carla said quietly as we headed for the parking garage. Whatever game we're in, it's bigger than corporate espionage or foreign intelligence. Someone's been planning something for a long time, and we're just starting to see the edges of it. The drive to the detention center took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Fort Worth's evening traffic crawled past while my mind raced through possibilities. Who would want to hurt Milena? Who had access to sealed case information? Who was this phantom player moving pieces we couldn't even see? The detention center was a gray concrete block that looked like it had been designed to drain hope from anyone who entered. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed with institutional indifference. Agent Walsh was waiting for us in the administrative wing. She's in the medical unit, Walsh said without preamble. Bruised ribs, split lip, possible concussion. She'll recover. Who did it? A woman named Patricia Cole. Transferred here 2 days ago on unrelated charges. But here's the interesting part: Cole doesn't exist before 6 months ago. The identity is completely fabricated. Someone planted her, I said. That's our assumption. Someone wanted to send a message to your wife, or to you. Can I see her? Walsh hesitated. She's asking for you. But Mr. Petrov, I need to warn you she's different. Whatever happened in that cell, it scared her in a way that all the federal charges didn't. They led me through multiple security checkpoints to a small medical room that smelled of disinfectant and despair. Milena lay on a narrow bed, her face a watercolor of bruises. The confident woman who'd orchestrated million-dollar betrayals looked fragile, human, broken. Knew you'd come, she said, her voice rough. Still predictable, even now. Who did this to you? Someone who knew things, she said, struggling to sit up. She knew about the accounts you haven't found yet. She knew about the meeting in Singapore that never made it into any files. She knew about Project Phoenix. Project Phoenix? Milena's eyes met mine, and for the first time in months I saw the woman I'd married. Scared, vulnerable, real. It's not what you think, she said. Victor's drone project that was just the cover. The real Phoenix is something else, something I only heard whispers about. A complete reconstruction of military defense infrastructure, Not just drones, everything. AI systems, satellite networks, cyber warfare capabilities, a total replacement of existing defense architecture. That's impossible. The cost alone would be in the hundreds of billions, she finished. Unless you had been planning it for decades. Unless you had people inside every major contractor, every government agency, every tech company. Unless you'd been building it piece by piece, hidden in plain sight. The room felt colder suddenly. The woman who attacked me, Milena continued, she said something before she hit me. She said, "The ghost was never you or your husband. The real ghost has been here all along, waiting for the perfect prototype." Perfect prototype. Our project's classified name that only a handful of people knew. She said one more thing, Milena whispered. She said, "Tell your husband he built it exactly right. Every vulnerability, every strength, every line of code. He built the key to Phoenix, and he doesn't even know it." I stood there, the weight of realization crushing down on me. We hadn't been building a drone. We'd been building something else, something someone had been waiting for, planning for. Every decision I'd made, every innovation, every breakthrough, had it all been guided, manipulated? "Nikolai!" Milena grabbed my hand, her grip weak but desperate. "I know I betrayed you. I know I destroyed us. But this is bigger than our pain. Someone used us both. They used our secrets, our lies, our ambitions. They played us like instruments in some symphony we couldn't hear." "Who?" I asked. "Who's doing this?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But whoever they are, they've won. They have everything they need. The technology, the algorithms, the neural network architecture. They have the perfect prototype, and we gave it to them." I left the detention center with more questions than answers. Carla was waiting in the parking lot, laptop open, face illuminated by the screen's glow. "You need to see this," she said immediately. "While you were inside, I kept digging. I found something." She showed me a pattern hidden in financial records, defense contracts, and personnel files spanning 30 years. "Every major defense contractor has had key personnel who follow a pattern," she explained. "They arrive, they push specific technological developments, then they disappear. But the technologies they champion all share common architectures, like pieces of a massive puzzle." "And Ghost Hawk is the centerpiece," she said grimly. "Our AI architecture, it's not just advanced, it's designed to be a master controller. It could theoretically interface with and control any compatible system. And guess what? Every major defense system developed in the last decade has compatibility protocols that match our architecture. That's not possible. I designed those protocols myself." Carla looked at me with something between pity and fear. "Did you? Or did you design exactly what someone needed you to design?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Had my entire career, my life's work, been nothing but a manipulation? Had I been programmed as surely as any drone? My phone buzzed. An unknown number, but I recognized the pattern, the same type that had been warning me all along. The text was simple. "The prototype flies at dawn tomorrow. Watch the skies over Fort Worth. The ghost rises." "Tomorrow's the International Defense Expo," Carla said, reading over my shoulder. "Victor was supposed to present there, but he's in custody. His company isn't. Someone else could present." She pulled up the expo schedule on her laptop. "Look at this. There's a new addition to the program. Phoenix Systems International. They're presenting something called the Future of Autonomous Defense." Phoenix Systems, a company that didn't exist yesterday. "They're making their move," I said. "Whatever they've been planning, it happens tomorrow." "So we stop them," Carla said simply. "How? We don't even know who they are." "No," she agreed. "But we know what they need. They need our technology, our algorithms, our neural network, and all of that runs through our servers." "You're suggesting we sabotage our own system?" "I'm suggesting we give them exactly what they want," she said, a dangerous smile playing at her lips. "With a few modifications they won't expect." Chapter 6. The lab at 2 a.m. had become my second home, maybe my first home now that the house I'd shared with Milena stood empty. The hum of servers and the glow of monitors were more familiar than any bedroom, more comforting than any embrace. Tonight, though, the familiar felt foreign. Every shadow could hide a watcher. Every line of code could contain a trap. Carla worked beside me, her fingers flying across 3 keyboards simultaneously, eyes tracking multiple screens like she was conducting a digital orchestra. We'd been at this for 6 hours, dissecting our own creation, looking for the keys that Phoenix Systems would try to use. Found another one, she muttered, highlighting a section of code. Backdoor protocol hidden in the navigation subroutine. It's been there since I wrote it 3 years ago, I finished, recognizing my own work. But I didn't put that there. No, but you did write the code around it. Look. She pulled up version histories. Every time you updated this section, the backdoor adapted, evolved, like it was learning from your coding style. The implications made my skin crawl. Someone hadn't just been watching me, they'd been learning from me, using my own patterns against me. There's something else, Carla said, pulling up another screen. I've been tracking personnel records from Phoenix Systems International. The company was incorporated yesterday, but the employee IDs in their system trace back to other companies. Shell corporations, all of them, but with one interesting connection. She displayed a web of corporate relationships that looked like a spider's web made of light. Every one of these companies had contracts with your father's firm. My blood froze. That's impossible. My father died when I was 12. I know. But his company, Petrov Advanced Systems, had defense contracts for 15 years before it was dissolved. And guess who bought up all their patents and research? A name appeared on screen that I didn't recognize. Prometheus Holdings. That's one of my shell companies, I said slowly. I created it to protect your father's legacy, Carla finished. But what if someone else got there first? What if they used your emotional connection to your father's work to guide you into creating Prometheus Holdings, knowing you'd eventually use that research in Ghost Hawk? I stared at the screen, feeling like the ground was dissolving beneath me. My father had been a defense contractor too, brilliant, but secretive. After his death in what was ruled an industrial accident, I'd spent years trying to understand his work, to complete what he'd started. It's what had driven me into defense technology in the first place. You're saying someone killed my father? I'm saying your father was working on something called Project Phoenix 25 years ago, Carla said gently. And now, suddenly, Phoenix Systems International appears just as our prototype based partly on your father's research reaches completion. My phone rang, startling us both. Sarah's name on the screen. We have a problem, she said without greeting. Someone just accessed the Ghost Hawk servers remotely. High-level breach. They're downloading everything. Shut it down, I ordered. I can't. They're using administrator credentials. Your credentials. I looked at my hands, still on my keyboard. That's impossible. I'm right here. The access is coming from inside the building, Sarah said. Server room 3. Carla and I ran through the empty corridors, our footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Server room 3 was supposed to be sealed, accessible only with biometric authentication. But the door stood open, the lock mechanism sparking with electrical damage. Inside, a figure in black stood at the main terminal, data streaming across multiple screens. They turned as we entered, and I found myself looking at a face I knew but couldn't place. Middle-aged, unremarkable, the kind of face that would disappear in a crowd. Hello, Nikolai, the man said calmly, continuing to type even as we approached. I've been waiting a long time to meet you properly. Who are you? Someone who knew your father. Someone who's been watching you grow, guiding you, helping you become exactly what we needed. He smiled, and it was neither warm nor cold, just empty. You can call me Marcus, Marcus. The name triggered something, a memory just out of reach. You were at my father's funeral, I said suddenly. You said you were a colleague. I was. I am. Your father and I were working on something revolutionary, something that could change the entire nature of warfare, of defense, of power itself. But he got cold feet, started having doubts about what we were building. So you killed him. He killed himself, Marcus corrected. When he destroyed the original Phoenix prototype, the explosion took him with it. He thought he was protecting the world. Instead, he just delayed the inevitable. And you've been using me to rebuild it. Not rebuild, improve. Your father was brilliant, but he was limited by the technology of his time. You, though you had access to modern AI, quantum processing, neural networks, You built what he never could, a truly autonomous defense system that can think, learn, and evolve. The download progress bar on the screen hit 100%. Marcus pulled out a drive and pocketed it. "Thank you for your contribution to Phoenix," he said. "Your country will benefit enormously, even if you never get credit for it." "My country?" I laughed bitterly. "This isn't about patriotism. This is about control." "Everything is about control," Marcus replied. "The question is, who holds it? Would you prefer China, Russia, or would you rather American interests maintain supremacy through technology so advanced that conventional warfare becomes obsolete? That's not your choice to make. It wasn't yours either, but you made it anyway when you built Ghost Hawk." He moved toward the door, but Carla stepped in his path. "You're not leaving with that data," she said. Marcus smiled again, that empty expression that made my skin crawl. "Miss Rodriguez, brilliant work on the stabilization algorithms, by the way. Your contributions have been invaluable. I didn't contribute to your project. Everyone who worked on Ghost Hawk contributed to Phoenix. That was the point." He pulled out a device that looked like a phone but wasn't. "I can leave peacefully, or I can trigger a complete system wipe that will destroy not just Ghost Hawk's data, but every connected defense contractor's database in a 50-mile radius. Your choice." "You're bluffing," Carla said. "Your laptop is connected to the Ghost Hawk network," Marcus observed, "which is connected to the DoD supplier network, which touches Fort Worth Aerospace, Nexus Defense, and 14 other contractors. One command from me, and decades of defense research disappears. Billions in development costs, gone. How many companies would survive that? How many jobs would be lost?" He was right. I could see it in Carla's face. Our systems were all interconnected, a web of shared data and collaborative development. It was what made modern defense contracts possible, and it was our greatest vulnerability. "Let him go," I said. "Smart choice," Marcus said, walking past Carla. "The expo starts in 6 hours. You should attend. Watch your creation fulfill its true purpose." "Ghost Hawk is grounded," I reminded him. "Federal investigation." "Ghost Hawk is, but Phoenix isn't." He paused at the doorway. "Your father would be proud, Nikolai. You completed his work, even if you didn't know it. You gave America the tool it needs to maintain peace through absolute superiority." "Peace through superiority isn't peace," I said. "It's domination." "Sometimes they're the same thing," Marcus replied. And then he was gone. I stood in the ruined server room, looking at the damaged systems, the violated security, the shattered illusion of control I'd thought I had. "We can stop him," Carla said. "The code he downloaded, we modified it, remember? We put in safeguards." "Did we?" I asked. "Or did we put in exactly what he expected us to? How do we know our modifications weren't part of his plan, too?" She didn't have an answer for that. Sarah arrived with a security team, but I knew it was pointless. Marcus, if that was even his real name, was already gone, vanished into the night like the ghost he was. "Sir," Sarah said, "we've identified the breach point. It wasn't random. Someone installed hardware modifications to our biometric scanners 3 months ago, during routine maintenance." 3 months ago. When Milena had started her increased meetings with Victor, when the conspiracy had accelerated, when everything had started falling apart. "The maintenance was performed by a company called Aegis Technical Services," Sarah continued, "which is a subsidiary of Phoenix Systems International," I finished. "They've been planning this for months, years, decades, maybe." My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "Stop digging or she dies." Attached was a photo of Milena in her cell, taken moments ago based on the timestamp. Someone had access to the Federal Detention Center's security cameras. "They're threatening her," I said, showing the message to Carla and Sarah. "Why?" Sarah asked. "She's already in custody. She can't interfere with their plans." "Because she knows something," Carla said. "Something about Phoenix that they don't want revealed." I thought about my conversation with Milena, her bruised face, her fear. She'd mentioned Singapore, a meeting that wasn't in any files. What had she learned there? I need to go back to the detention center, I said. Sir, that's not safe, Sarah protested. If they have people inside, they have people everywhere, I interrupted. We've established that, but Milena has information we need and they're threatening to kill her for it. That tells me it's important enough to risk. I'm coming with you, Carla said. No, I need you here, working on those safeguards. If we can't stop Phoenix from launching, maybe we can control what it does once it's active. She nodded reluctantly. Be careful, Nick. We're not just fighting a conspiracy anymore. We're fighting our own creation. The drive back to the detention center felt like moving through a dream. Fort Worth at 4 a.m. was a different city, empty streets, dark buildings, a sense of waiting for something to begin or end. The radio played news updates about the International Defense Expo, excitement about new technologies that would reshape modern warfare. If only they knew they were about to witness the end of warfare as they understood it. The detention center was on high alert when I arrived. Federal agents were everywhere, their faces tense with the kind of fear that comes from not knowing where the threat is coming from. Agent Walsh met me at the entrance. There's been another incident. My heart sank. Milena? She's alive, but barely. Someone poisoned her food. We caught it in time, but... She paused. Mr. Petrov, whoever these people are, they have reach we didn't imagine. Judges, guards, administrators, we don't know who to trust. I need to see her. She's sedated. The doctor said, I need to see her now, I insisted. She has information about Phoenix that could stop all of this. Walsh studied me for a long moment, then nodded. 5 minutes. That's all I can give you. Milena looked smaller in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines monitoring her vital signs. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her breathing was shallow but steady. I took her hand, surprised by how cold it felt. Milena, I whispered. Can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening with recognition. Knew you'd come, she breathed. Always were predictable. Tell me about Singapore, I said urgently. What did you learn there? Not Singapore, she corrected weakly. Singapore was the cover. The real meeting was in Jakarta. Underground facility. Tech I'd never seen before. What kind of tech? Quantum processors, neural interfaces, AI systems that could predict human behavior with 97% accuracy. She squeezed my hand weakly. They showed me simulations, Nikolai. Wars that never happened because their system prevented them. Terrorist attacks stopped before the terrorists even knew they were planning them. Complete predictive control of human conflict. That's impossible. That's what I thought. But they had proof. Historical events they'd prevented, catastrophes that never made the news because they never happened. Her voice was fading. They said Ghost Hawk was the last piece. With its autonomous capabilities and their predictive systems, they could create a defense network that would make traditional military obsolete. Who are they? Who's running Phoenix? Not Phoenix, she said. Phoenix is just the newest name. They've been called different things over the years. Prometheus Group, Oracle Initiative, Project Lazarus, but it's always been the same people, the same goal. Which is peace through absolute control. A world where conflict is impossible because every potential threat is neutralized before it exists. She looked at me with eyes that held too much pain. Your father was part of it, Nikolai, until he realized what they were really building. A prison, I said, understanding flooding through me. A global prison where free will becomes an illusion. They call it evolution, Milena whispered. The next step in human civilization. No more wars, no more terrorism, no more unexpected violence, just perfect, predictable peace. Under their control. Under the system's control. That's the brilliant part. No human controls it. The AI makes all decisions based on algorithms designed to minimize human suffering and maximize stability. They remove human bias, human error, human corruption. And human choice, I added. They think that's a small price for world peace. A monitor started beeping. Milena's heart rate was dropping. There's a kill switch, she said urgently, gripping my hand with surprising strength. Your father built it into the original design, hidden so deep even they don't know it exists. It's in the code, Nikolai. In the patterns. Look for the ghost in the machine. What ghost? What pattern? But her eyes were closing, the medication pulling her back under. The prototype, she mumbled. It's not just a drone. It's the template for thousands. They'll build an army of them, all connected, all thinking with one mind. Your mind, Nikolai. They're using your neural patterns as the base template. The monitor started screaming alerts. Doctors rushed in, pushing me aside. She's going into cardiac arrest, one shouted. I watched helplessly as they worked to save her, the woman I'd loved, who'd betrayed me, who was now fighting for her life because she'd tried to warn me. Agent Walsh pulled me from the room. You need to leave, now. Is she going to survive? I don't know, but you can't stay here. If they're willing to poison her in federal custody, you're not safe anywhere. She was right, but I had work to do. The expo started in 2 hours, and Phoenix Systems would unveil their version of my creation. I had to be there, had to see what my life's work had become. As I left the detention center, my phone rang. Carla. I found it, she said breathlessly. The kill switch Milena mentioned. It's brilliant, Nikolai. Your father hid it in the basic motor control functions, disguised as efficiency protocols. Every drone built using our template will have it. Can we trigger it? Not remotely. It has to be activated from within the system, by someone with administrator access to the master control unit. Which Phoenix now has. Yes, but there's a window. During the initial activation sequence, when they bring the system online for the first time, there's a 30-second period where the authentication protocols reset. If we can get physical access to their control unit during those 30 seconds, we can trigger the kill switch and shut down everything. Exactly. But Nikolai, it's a one-shot deal. If we miss that window, the system locks us out permanently. 30 seconds to save the world from a prison of peace. It seemed impossibly short and infinitely long at the same time. I'll get you access, I promised. Just be ready. Already am. Nick, be careful. These people have been playing this game longer than we've been alive. Maybe, I said, looking at Fort Worth's skyline as dawn approached. But it's my game now. My creation, my rules. Your father would be proud, she said softly. I thought about my father, about the choice he'd made to destroy his work rather than let it be perverted, about the explosion that had taken his life but saved countless others from a controlled future. No, I said. He'd tell me to run, to hide, to let someone else fight this battle. But you're not going to do that. No, I agreed. I'm not. I'm going to walk into that expo, face whatever Phoenix has become, and either save the future or die trying. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? My wife betrayed me, my life's work has been stolen, and Shadow Organization wants to use my brain patterns to control the world. I think I've earned a little drama. She laughed, a sound that felt like hope in the darkness. Fair point. I'll be monitoring everything from here. The moment you get me access, I'll trigger the kill switch. I hung up and drove toward the expo center, toward the confrontation that had been decades in the making. The ghost was about to rise, but maybe, just maybe, I could make sure it was my father's ghost, not theirs. Chapter 7. The Fort Worth Convention Center looked different in the pre-dawn darkness. I'd been here dozens of times for trade shows and industry events, but never like this, never as both creator and destroyer, architect and saboteur. The parking lot was already filling with military vehicles, black SUVs with government plates, and the occasional news van hoping to catch the next big defense story. They had no idea they were about to witness history, or maybe its end. I parked far from the main entrance and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts. In my pocket was a USB drive Carla had prepared our Trojan horse, designed to give her remote access to Phoenix's systems if I could get close enough to plug it in. On my phone, the countdown timer showed 47 minutes until Phoenix Systems' presentation. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Phoenix brought their own security. Private contractors, all ex-military. They've locked down the entire East Wing. Of course they had. Marcus and his people had been planning this for decades. They wouldn't leave anything to chance now. Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. Your wife died at 5:47 a.m. You have our condolences." The words hit like a physical blow. Milena. Dead. I wanted to call the hospital to confirm it was a lie, but I knew it wasn't. They'd killed her to tie up loose ends, to eliminate anyone who knew too much about their true plans. I sat there in my car, grief and rage warring in my chest. Milena had betrayed me, yes, but she'd also loved me once, and in the end she'd tried to warn me, tried to help stop what we'd both unwittingly helped create. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the empty car. "I'm so sorry, Mill, but sorry wouldn't bring her back. Sorry wouldn't stop Phoenix. Only action would." I entered through a service entrance I'd used years ago during my first presentation at the facility. The hallways were industrial, meant for caterers and maintenance staff, not CEOs and generals, but that made them perfect for someone trying to avoid Phoenix's security. I made it to the main expo floor without incident. The space was massive, a football field of defense technology, from small arms to satellite systems. But all eyes were on the East Wing, where Phoenix Systems International had constructed an elaborate presentation area. Black walls surrounded their space, hiding whatever they planned to reveal. "Nikolai?" I turned to find General Morrison, the Pentagon liaison who'd approved our Ghost Hawk contract. "General," I said, trying to sound normal, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Phoenix Systems requested my presence specifically," he said, studying me with sharp eyes. "They claim to have revolutionary technology that will make everything else obsolete, including your Ghost Hawk." "That's a bold claim." "Yes, it is, which is why I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you'd be preparing for the investigation hearings." "I wanted to see the competition," I lied smoothly. "Know thy enemy and all that." Morrison nodded slowly, but I could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. "Be careful, son. There's something off about this whole thing. Phoenix appeared out of nowhere with Pentagon clearances I've never seen before. Someone very high up is protecting them." Before I could respond, the lights dimmed. A voice echoed through the convention center. "Ladies and gentlemen, Phoenix Systems International invites you to witness the future of global defense." The black walls around their area began to retract, revealing a stage that looked more like a command center than a presentation space. Screens covered every surface, showing feeds from around the world military bases, city centers, satellite imagery. And in the center, on a raised platform, sat a drone that looked heartbreakingly familiar. It was Ghost Hawk, or rather, it was what Ghost Hawk was always meant to become. The design was refined, sleeker, with modifications I recognized from my own theoretical work, things I'd dreamed about but never had time to implement. Marcus walked onto the stage, now dressed in an expensive suit that made him look like any other defense contractor CEO. But I knew better. I knew the empty soul behind that professional facade. "Welcome," he said, his voice carrying easily through the space. "Today, you will witness the end of conventional warfare and the beginning of true peace." The crowd murmured with interest and skepticism. These were hardened military professionals and defense industry veterans. They'd heard grand promises before. "For decades," Marcus continued, "we've been reactive in our defense strategies. We respond to threats after they emerge. We deploy forces after conflicts begin. We count casualties after battles end. Phoenix changes that paradigm entirely." The screens shifted, showing a complex web of interconnected systems. Imagine a defense network that predicts threats before they materialize, that identifies potential terrorists before they radicalize, that prevents wars by eliminating the conditions that cause them. This is not science fiction. This is Phoenix. He gestured to the drone. This prototype, based on advanced AI architecture developed over many years, is capable of autonomous decision-making that surpasses human capability. It doesn't just respond to threats, it anticipates them. A demonstration began. On the screens, a simulated terrorist cell planned an attack. The Phoenix drone, working with predictive algorithms, identified the threat days before execution. It deployed non-lethal countermeasures, disrupted communications, and guided law enforcement to prevent the attack without a single casualty. The crowd was impressed, despite themselves. I could see it in their faces, the hunger for this kind of capability, this kind of control. But a single drone is just the beginning, Marcus said. Phoenix is designed to be a network. Hundreds, thousands of units, all sharing information, all learning from each other, all protecting humanity from itself. That's when I saw it the control unit sitting at a workstation just off stage. It was running the demonstration, controlling the prototype. If I could get to it during the activation sequence. I started moving through the crowd, trying to look casual, just another interested observer getting a closer look. But Phoenix's security noticed me immediately. Two men in black suits started converging on my position. "Mr. Petrov," Marcus called out from the stage, stopping me cold. "I'm so glad you could join us. Ladies and gentlemen, Nikolai Petrov, the brilliant mind behind the original Ghost Hawk project." All eyes turned to me. There was no running now, no hiding. "Come," Marcus continued, gesturing to the stage. "Share this moment with us. After all, you're the father of this technology." I had no choice. I walked onto the stage, feeling like I was walking to my execution. Nikolai's work laid the foundation for Phoenix, Marcus told the audience. His innovations in AI architecture, his breakthrough in autonomous decision-making without him, none of this would be possible. "You stole my work," I said into the microphone he handed me. "Stole?" Marcus laughed. "We refined it, completed it, gave it purpose beyond profit margins and government contracts. You murdered my wife." The crowd gasped. Marcus's expression didn't change. "Your wife was a traitor who sold defense secrets to foreign powers," he said calmly. "Her death was unfortunate but necessary for national security." "Whose national security?" I challenged. "America's? Or your shadow organizations?" "They're the same thing," Marcus replied. "Phoenix isn't some rogue operation. We're a coalition of patriots who understand that traditional governance cannot address modern threats. Democracy is too slow, too compromised, too vulnerable to manipulation. So you'll manipulate it instead? We'll protect it, guide it, ensure its survival." He turned to the audience. "How many of you have seen good soldiers die because politicians couldn't make hard decisions? How many have watched terrorism spread because legal systems protected the guilty? Phoenix ends that paralysis." I could see some in the crowd nodding. Military officers who'd lost men to bureaucracy. Intelligence officials hamstrung by oversight. They wanted to believe in a solution, even if it came from shadows. "Let me show you something," Marcus said, turning to the screens. "This is live footage from 12 major cities around the world." The screens showed urban centers, New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, normal city life, people going about their business. "Our predictive algorithms have identified 17 potential terrorist attacks planned for the next month," Marcus continued. "Traditional intelligence might catch 3 or 4. Phoenix will stop them all." "By controlling everyone," I said. "By monitoring every communication, tracking every movement, predicting every action." "By preventing suffering," Marcus corrected. "Isn't that worth some privacy? Some freedom?" "That's not your choice to make for everyone." "Isn't it?" He gestured to the prototype. "Activate Phoenix Protocol 1. The drone hummed to life, its AI core initializing. On my phone, hidden in my pocket, I felt the vibration of Carla's message. "Activation detected. 30-second window starts now." I had to get to that control unit, but I was surrounded on stage with every eye watching me. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Alarms started blaring. On the screens, instead of city footage, a single message appeared. "The ghost rises." Carla. She'd hacked their presentation system. In the chaos, I jumped from the stage and ran for the control unit. Phoenix security moved to intercept, but the crowd was panicking. Military personnel drawing weapons, not sure if this was part of the demonstration or an attack. I reached the workstation just as Marcus realized what was happening. "Stop him!" he shouted. But I was already at the keyboard, Carla's USB drive sliding into the port. The system recognized it immediately after all. It was based on my own security protocols. "Access granted," the screen displayed. "Administrator privileges enabled." On my phone, Carla's voice crackled through. "I'm in! Triggering kill switch in 5, 4. A hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. Marcus stood there, a pistol pointed at my chest. "You're destroying the future," he said. "I'm saving it," I replied. 3, 2. Marcus pulled the trigger. Marcus. The impact knocked me backward, pain exploding through my shoulder. But my hand hit the enter key as I fell, executing the final command. 1. Activated. On stage, the Phoenix prototype shuddered. Its lights flickered, then died. On the screens, system after system showed failure cascades. The entire Phoenix network, built on my architecture, infected with my father's kill switch, was dying. "What have you done?" Marcus screamed, standing over me. "What my father should have done 25 years ago," I gasped through the pain. "I ended it." He raised the gun again, but before he could fire, Carla's voice echoed through the convention center's speakers. "Attention all personnel. This is Ghost Hawk Security. We have evidence of murder, conspiracy, and treason by Phoenix Systems International. Federal agents are en route. Marcus Webb, you are under arrest." Webb. His last name was Webb. Somehow, knowing that made him seem more human, more fallible. Marcus Webb looked around wildly. His security team was being overwhelmed by military police. General Morrison had his own weapon drawn, pointed at Webb. "Drop the gun, son," Morrison said calmly. "It's over." "It's never over," Webb said. "Phoenix was just one attempt. There will be others. The world needs order, control, peace." "The world needs choice," I said from the floor, blood seeping through my shirt. "Even the choice to make mistakes." Webb looked at me with those empty eyes. "Your father said the same thing, right before he destroyed everything we'd built." "Good man, my father." "Fool," Webb spat. "You're both fools. You'd rather have chaos than control, war than peace." "I'd rather have freedom than safety," I said. "That's what makes us human." Federal agents flooded the convention center. Webb dropped his weapon, allowing himself to be cuffed. As they led him away, he looked back at me. "You've won nothing," he said. "The technology exists now. Others will use it. Others will build what we started." "Maybe," I agreed, "but not today, and not with my soul powering it." Paramedics arrived, working on my shoulder. The bullet had missed anything vital, but the pain was extraordinary. As they loaded me onto a gurney, I saw Carla pushing through the crowd. "You did it," she said, taking my hand. "The kill switch worked. Every Phoenix system worldwide is dead." "Melena's dead too," I said, the grief hitting fresh. "I know. I'm sorry." She tried to help in the end. "Then we'll remember that. Not the betrayal, but the final choice." As they wheeled me out, I saw the Phoenix prototype one last time. Dead metal and circuits no longer the threat it had been. Just another machine, waiting to be dismantled and studied and eventually forgotten. But I wouldn't forget. I'd remember the cost of secrets, the price of hidden power, the danger of perfect solutions to imperfect problems. Chapter 8. 3 weeks had passed since the Phoenix reveal, since Webb's arrest, since Melena's death. My shoulder had healed enough that I could work again, though the doctors said I'd carry the scar forever. A memento of the day I killed my own creation to save the world from a peaceful prison. The Ghost Hawk facility had been transformed into a crime scene, then a research center, then finally back to what it had always been, a place where brilliant people built dangerous things and hoped they'd be used wisely. I stood in my real office now, no longer hiding behind the engineer facade. Everyone knew who I was. Nikolai Petrov, billionaire defense contractor, the ghost finally visible. "The Pentagon wants a meeting," Sarah informed me, entering with a tablet full of requests I hadn't answered. "They're interested in a new version of Ghost Hawk, one with safeguards against Phoenix-style manipulation." "Tell them no," I said, staring out at the Fort Worth skyline. "Ghost Hawk is dead. It needs to stay that way." "Sir, that's a $100 million contract you're refusing." "I know exactly what I'm refusing." She left, frustrated but obedient. They all were now obedient to the ghost who'd emerged from shadows into uncomfortable light. Carla found me there an hour later, watching the sun set over the city my father had died protecting. "You can't blame yourself forever," she said, joining me at the window. "I'm not blaming myself. I'm learning from myself." I turned to face her. Every line of code I wrote, every innovation I celebrated, it all led to Phoenix. My pride, my secrecy, my belief that I could control something uncontrollable. You stopped it. This time. But Webb was right. The technology exists now. Someone else will try to build it. Then we'll stop them too. I smiled at her optimism. We? You're staying? Someone has to keep you from becoming a brooding cliché, she said. Besides, I have an idea. She pulled out a tablet, showing me designs I didn't recognize. What is this? The opposite of Phoenix, she explained. Instead of one system controlling everything, thousands of independent systems checking each other. No central control, no single point of failure, no way for anyone to hijack it for total control. Distributed defense, I said, understanding. Chaos instead of order. Freedom instead of control, she corrected. Your father would have liked it. I studied the designs, seeing the elegance in the chaos, the beauty in the unpredictability. It was everything Phoenix wasn't: messy, inefficient, gloriously human. It would cost billions to develop, I pointed out. Good thing you have billions. The Pentagon would never approve it. Too many variables, too much uncertainty. Then we don't build it for the Pentagon. We build it for everyone. Open source it. Let the world protect itself instead of waiting for protection. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was exactly what my father would have done. All right, I said, but not as Ghost Hawk. That company died with Milena. We need something new. I have a name, Carla said, smiling. Free Fall. Free Fall? Because sometimes the only way to fly is to let go of control completely. I laughed, the first real laugh since the convention center. Free Fall it is. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I recognized the pattern. Another ghost, another warning. But this time the message was different. Your father would be proud. The real ghost can finally rest. A friend. I showed it to Carla. Any idea who keeps sending these? She took the phone, studying it with her engineer's eye for patterns. The routing is too sophisticated for normal encryption. This is government level, but not our government. Foreign intelligence? Or someone so deep in our intelligence they might as well be foreign. She handed the phone back. Does it matter? They helped us when we needed it. She was right. In the world of shadows and ghosts, sometimes you had to accept help without knowing its source. My father had taught me that, in his way, by hiding the kill switch so deep, even he couldn't have predicted when it would be needed. A knock at the door interrupted us. Tom, our original security chief, entered looking uncomfortable. Sir, there's someone here to see you. She says she was a friend of your wife. I tensed. Milena's associates were either criminals or victims, neither of which I wanted to deal with tonight. Send her away, I started, but Tom shook his head. She said to give you this. He handed me a small device, about the size of a quarter. I recognized it immediately, a quantum storage unit, the kind that could hold terabytes of data in something you could swallow if necessary. The kind Milena had worn as a necklace, telling everyone it was just jewelry. Bring her in, I said. The woman who entered looked nothing like I expected. Young, maybe 25, with the kind of forgettable face that would vanish in a crowd. She moved like a dancer, though, all controlled grace and hidden strength. Mr. Petrov, she said, her accent slight but unplaceable. My name is Anna. I worked with your wife. Worked? You mean stole defense secrets together? I mean tried to stop Phoenix together, she corrected. Milena wasn't just selling secrets. She was gathering intelligence on Webb's organization. The room went silent. Even Carla looked shocked. That's impossible, I said. She betrayed me, betrayed Ghost Hawk. To get close to Victor, who was Webb's entry point into the defense industry. Anna moved closer, pulling out a tablet. Milena knew you'd never believe her if she tried to warn you directly. You'd hidden so much from her, she knew you'd assume she was hiding things too. So she played the role Webb expected, the greedy wife betraying her secretive husband. She let me think she was a traitor. She became a traitor to fight traitors. Anna showed me files on her tablet communications between Milena and various intelligence agencies, all encrypted, all recent. She was feeding information to 6 different governments, creating a trail that would expose Phoenix no matter who tried to bury it. I sank into my chair, the weight of this revelation crushing. She died thinking I hated her. She died knowing you'd stop Phoenix. That was all that mattered to her. Anna set the quantum storage unit on my desk. This contains everything she gathered. Financial records, Personnel files, the complete structure of Webb's organization. There are 17 other Phoenix-style projects in development worldwide. This data could stop them all. Why give it to me? Why not the FBI? Because the FBI has been compromised for years. So has the CIA, NSA, every alphabet agency you can name. Anna stood to leave. Milena believed you were the only one who couldn't be bought or controlled, the ghost who chose isolation over corruption. Wait, I called as she reached the door. Who are you really? Who do you work for? She smiled, the first real expression I'd seen from her. I work for the same organization your father did, before Webb corrupted it. We're the ones who've been warning you, helping you, protecting you when we could. The real ghosts, I said, understanding. We prefer guardians, but yes, we watch, we warn, we never control. She paused at the doorway. Your Free Fall project will be watching that too, making sure it stays free. Then she was gone, vanishing into the facility like smoke. Carla and I stood in my office, staring at the quantum storage device that contained my wife's real legacy. She loved you, Carla said softly, enough to let you hate her if it meant saving you. She saved everyone, I corrected, picking up the device. It was warm, as if it still held some trace of Milena's life. We need to analyze this data, find these other Phoenix projects. And stop them, and expose them, all of them. No more shadows, no more secrets. I looked at Carla. Freefall goes public tomorrow. Complete transparency. Let the world see what we're building and why. That'll make you a target for every government and corporation that wants this technology. Good. Let them come. I'm done hiding. That night, I stood on the roof of the Ghost Hawk facility, soon to be the Free Fall facility, looking out over Fort Worth. The city sprawled beneath me, lights twinkling like earthbound stars, each one representing lives that would never know how close they'd come to living in a perfectly controlled world. My phone rang. Agent Walsh. Webb's dead, she said without preamble. Suicide in his cell. Or at least that's what it looks like. Another loose end tied up, I said, not surprised. Webb knew too much about too many people. His survival was never guaranteed once Phoenix fell. There's going to be an investigation, Walsh continued. Congressional hearings. They'll want to know how Phoenix got so far without anyone noticing. They noticed. They just chose to look away because the promise of perfect security was too tempting. That's a cynical view. That's an honest view. I hung up and dialed another number, one I hadn't used in years. Hello? The voice was old, weathered, but familiar. Professor Martinez? This is Nikolai Petrov. Nikolai, I heard about your recent adventures. Quite the sensation. Professor Martinez had been my father's closest friend, the only one who'd questioned the official story of his death. Professor, I need to ask you something about my father. Did he ever mention the Guardians? There was a long pause. How do you know that term? So he did know them. Know them? Nikolai, your father founded them. After he discovered what Webb was planning with Phoenix, he created a shadow organization to shadow the shadow organization. Fight fire with fire, he said. My father was a Guardian? The first Guardian. He knew he couldn't stop Webb directly, so he planted seeds, code fragments, hidden protocols, people like me who would watch and wait and help when the time came. The kill switch, among other things. Your father knew that one day Webb would try again, would use his son to complete what he'd started, so he made sure you'd have the tools to stop it. He sacrificed himself for a future he'd never see. He sacrificed himself for you, Nikolai, so you could have the choice he never had to build something better. I thanked the professor and hung up, standing alone on the roof with the ghost of my father and the memory of my wife, both of them having given everything to stop a future they feared more than death. Tomorrow, free fall would be announced. Tomorrow the world would learn that their defense systems could be democratic, chaotic, free. Tomorrow, 17 Phoenix projects would be exposed and destroyed. But tonight I stood with my ghosts, my guardians, my loves lost and found. Tonight I was still Nikolai Petrov, son of a hero, husband of a hero, accidental hero myself. The ghost had risen, Webb had said. He was right. But it wasn't the ghost he expected. It was my father's ghost. Melena's ghost. The ghost of everyone who died believing freedom was worth more than safety, choice more than control, chaos more than order. And that ghost would never rest. It would watch, warn, and protect, but never control. It would guard the future from those who would steal it in the name of security. I went back inside, back to Carla and the work of building something new from the ashes of something corrupted. We had code to write, systems to design, a vision of defensive chaos to create. But first, I had 17 Phoenix projects to destroy. My wife had died gathering this intelligence. The least I could do was use it. "Ready to save the world?" Carla asked as I returned to the office. "Again?" I smiled. "Why not? We're getting good at it." She laughed and we got to work. 2 engineers building a tomorrow that no one could predict or control. Somewhere, I thought, my father and Melena were watching. And for the first time since this all began, I thought they might be proud. The perfect lie was over. The messy truth had begun, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Chapter 9. 6 weeks after Webb's death, I sat in a wood-paneled room that smelled of old leather and older secrets. The congressional hearing chamber was designed to intimidate high ceilings, harsh lights, and a semicircle of senators who looked down at me like judges at the gates of heaven, or hell, depending on how this went. "Mr. Petrov," Senator Harrison began, his Texas drawl making my name sound like an accusation. "You built a $3 billion defense empire using false identities and shell companies. You hid this from your own government, your investors, even your wife. Why should we trust anything you say?" I adjusted the microphone, buying myself a second to think. The room was packed reporters, military brass, other defense contractors who'd come to watch me burn or rise from the ashes. In the gallery, I spotted Carla, her presence a small anchor in this storm. "Senator, I hid my ownership structure, yes, but I never hid my work. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every line of code, it all went to protecting American interests. The only thing I concealed was who was signing the checks." "And that concealment," Senator Rodriguez interjected, her voice sharp as winter wind, "allowed Phoenix Systems to infiltrate your company, steal your technology, and nearly hand it to foreign powers." She was right, of course. My secrecy had created the shadows where Webb and his conspirators could operate. But admitting that felt like swallowing glass. My secrecy was a vulnerability, I said carefully. But it was Phoenix's transparency that was the real lie. They had Pentagon approval, congressional backing, corporate partnerships, all completely in the open. And they were the real threat. "Because they were hiding in plain sight," Senator Harrison mused, "while you were hiding in shadows." "Sometimes shadows see other shadows more clearly," I replied. The hearing continued for 3 hours. They grilled me about every shell company, every offshore account, every decision that had led to the Phoenix crisis. By the end, my shirt was soaked with sweat, my throat raw from talking. But I'd told the truth, all of it. For the first time in my life, I had no secrets left to protect. "Mr. Petrov," Senator Harrison said as the hearing concluded, "this committee will review your testimony and determine what, if any, charges should be filed. Until then, your assets are frozen, your security clearances suspended. You're free to go, but don't leave the country. Free to go. As if freedom was something you could just walk into after living in a prison of your own making for so long." Outside the hearing room, reporters swarmed like hungry wolves. Their questions blended into white noise. "Did you know about your wife's involvement? How many other Phoenix projects exist? Will you rebuild Ghost Hawk?" I pushed through them without answering, Carla appearing at my elbow to help clear a path. We made it to my car, not the BMW anymore. That had been seized, but a rental Toyota that felt like wearing someone else's clothes. "That went well," Carla said dryly as we pulled away from the Capitol. "I'm not in handcuffs, so I'll count it as a win." "Low bar you've set for yourself." "It's been a low bar kind of year." We drove in silence through D.C. traffic, the monuments and museums passing like tombstones for American ideals I'd thought I was protecting. The Lincoln Memorial looked particularly ironic, Honest Abe, watching over a city built on secrets and lies. My phone buzzed. Anna, the mysterious woman who delivered Melena's final intelligence. 13 down, 4 to go, her text read. Moscow cell was harder than expected, lost 2 assets. 13 Phoenix cells destroyed in 6 weeks. Anna and her guardians had been busy using Milena's intelligence to dismantle Webb's network piece by piece. But people were dying for it, people whose names I'd never know, fighting a war the public would never hear about. "The Guardian?" Carla asked, seeing my expression. 13 cells eliminated. 4 left is 4 too many. Agreed, but we can't help from here, not with frozen assets and suspended clearances. We can help by building free fall, she reminded me. Open source defense changes everything. No shadows for Phoenix types to hide in. She was right, but free fall felt impossibly far away. We needed funding, facilities, engineers, everything I'd had at Ghost Hawk and lost. That evening, I sat in my hotel room. The Georgetown townhouse was gone too. Another frozen asset staring at the quantum storage device Milena had left behind. I'd been through the data a dozen times, but tonight, something new caught my eye. A folder labeled Insurance. Inside were recordings, dozens of them. Milena's voice talking to someone I didn't recognize. "The Phoenix protocols are deeper than Webb knows," she was saying in one recording. "There's a second layer, older, going back to the Cold War. They call it Project Lazarus Resurrection of Conflicts to justify defense spending. Create the threat, then sell the solution." My blood chilled. Phoenix wasn't just about control, it was about creating chaos to justify that control. Another recording. "Nikolai doesn't know, but his father discovered Lazarus. That's why they killed him. Not because he opposed Phoenix, but because he found out Phoenix was just the surface." I listened to my dead wife reveal layers of conspiracy I hadn't imagined. Each recording was dated, verified, undeniable. She'd been investigating for 2 years, long before she'd started working with Victor. She'd played the role of betrayer to get close to the truth. The last recording was different. Just Milena, alone, speaking to the device like a confession. "Nikolai, if you're hearing this, I'm probably dead. I know you hate me for what I've done, what you think I've done. But everything Victor, the affairs, the stealing, it was all to protect you. Webb would have killed you the moment you became inconvenient. So I became the threat instead, drew their attention, made them focus on me." Her voice cracked. "I love you. I've always loved you. Even when I was betraying you. Especially then. Because betraying you meant saving you. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday you understand that our perfect lie was my way of giving you a chance at an imperfect truth." I sat in that cheap hotel room, holding the device that contained my wife's real last words, and wept. Wept for the woman I'd married, the woman I'd hated, the woman who'd died saving me from shadows I didn't even know existed. Chapter 10. The warehouse in Baltimore looked like nothing special, just another industrial building in a district full of them. But according to Anna's intelligence, this was Phoenix Cell 14, one of the last operational nodes in Webb's network. Inside, they were building something that made Ghost Hawk look like a toy. "Remind me why we're doing this instead of calling the FBI," Carla whispered, adjusting her tactical vest. It had been her idea to go active, to stop waiting for bureaucracy to handle what we could handle ourselves. Because the FBI would need warrants, probable cause, 5 committees to approve action, I replied, checking the modified scanner I'd built from Ghost Hawk components. By then, whatever's in there gets moved or destroyed. Or, Anna's voice crackled through our earpieces, because you need to do something with your hands instead of sitting in hotel rooms listening to your dead wife's recordings. She was on overwatch from a building across the street, her guardian training making her invisible even to the security cameras she'd already disabled. That too, I admitted. The plan was simple: get in, document everything, get out. Let Anna's people handle the actual takedown. We were observers, not operators. At least that was the plan. The service entrance was unlocked just as Anna had promised. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of plastic sheeting and construction barriers, hiding whatever was being built in the center. We moved carefully, Carla recording everything on a military-grade camera while I scanned for electronic signatures. Then I saw it. In the center of the warehouse, surrounded by workstations and server racks, was a prototype that made my heart stop. It wasn't a drone. It was something far worse, a quantum processing unit designed to interface directly with human neural patterns. The applications were horrifying: mind control, thought prediction, consciousness manipulation. Jesus, Carla breathed. Is that what I think it is? Neural interface architecture, I confirmed, my scanner going crazy with readings. They're not just trying to control technology anymore. They're trying to control thoughts. Literally 1984, she muttered. Orwell was an optimist, Anna's voice cut in. Movement on the north entrance. 3 vehicles incoming, military contractors by the look of them. We should have run. Should have gotten out while we could. But I couldn't leave that prototype operational. It was built on my architecture, my neural patterns. In the wrong hands, and any hands were the wrong hands for this, it could enslave minds as easily as Phoenix would have enslaved defense systems. Anna, we need 5 minutes, I said, already moving toward the control console. You need to leave. Now. 5 minutes, I insisted, my fingers flying over the keyboard. The system recognized my neural signature immediately. Of course it did. I was the template. I can destroy this. Nikolai. But I was already in, navigating through directories that felt like looking in a mirror. Every organization pattern, every security protocol, it was all based on how my mind worked, which meant I knew exactly where the vulnerabilities were. Got it, I said, initiating a cascade failure in the quantum matrix. 60 seconds until this thing tears itself apart at the subatomic level. That's when the shooting started. The contractors had entered fast and violent, not bothering with warnings or identification. Bullets shattered the plastic sheeting, sparked off metal surfaces. Carla pulled me down behind a server rack just as rounds passed through where my head had been. I told you to run! Anna's voice was tight with concentration. Through the windows I could see muzzle flashes from her position. She was picking off contractors, buying us time. Exit route? I asked. South wall, loading dock, move now. We ran, staying low, the countdown in my head hitting 30 seconds. Behind us, contractors shouted coordinates, trying to flank us. The prototype began making a high-pitched whine, quantum processors overheating as my virus tore through their matrices. The loading dock door was locked. Of course it was. Stand back, Carla said, pulling something from her vest. Anna gave me party favors. The small explosive she placed on the lock was elegant focused destruction, minimal collateral damage. The door blew open just as the prototype's whine became a scream. Run! I shouted. We sprinted into the Baltimore evening, the warehouse exploding behind us in a light show that had nothing to do with conventional explosives. Quantum processors didn't explode. They collapsed, taking pieces of reality with them. The warehouse folded in on itself, a brief black hole that consumed everything inside before winking out of existence. We made it 3 blocks before the shockwave hit, knocking us into an alley. When I looked back, the warehouse was gone. Not destroyed, gone. A perfectly circular hole in the ground where it had been. What the hell was that? Carla gasped. Quantum collapse, I said, helping her up. Turns out my kill switch works on more than just drones. Anna materialized from the shadows, her face grim. That was stupid. Brave, but stupid. It worked. It alerted every intelligence agency in the hemisphere. We need to move. As we ran, sirens converging on the empty space where Phoenix Cell 14 had been, Anna briefed us on the other cells. 2 in Europe, 1 in Asia, 1 location unknown. Each building something different, something worse. The neural interface we'd just destroyed was small compared to what they were planning. How do we stop them all? Carla asked. We don't, Anna said simply. We've done what we can. The rest is up to governments that now know the threat exists. That's not enough, I protested. It has to be. We're not an army, Nikolai. We're watchers. We warn, we expose, but we don't wage war. Then what was tonight? Tonight was personal, she admitted. That prototype had your neural patterns. If they'd completed it, they could have built 1,000 copies of your mind, enslaved them, used them to develop weapons we can't imagine. 1,000 copies of my mind. The thought was nauseating. We split up at the train station, Anna disappearing into a crowd while Carla and I caught the Amtrak back to D.C. As the city lights blurred past, I thought about what we'd destroyed and what was still out there. 3 cells left, Carla said, reading my mind. Think Anna can handle them? Anna and her guardians have been handling this for decades, I said. But this feels different, bigger, like Webb's death triggered something instead of ending it. Succession plan? Or resurrection protocol? Lazarus, remember? Maybe Webb was meant to die. Maybe that was always part of the plan. The thought chilled us both into silence. Outside, America rolled past in darkness, millions of people sleeping peacefully, unaware that their thoughts had almost become corporate property. Chapter 11. 3 months later, I stood in a repurposed airplane hangar in Amarillo, watching the future take shape. Freefall Industries had risen from Ghost Hawk's ashes, funded by a coalition of tech entrepreneurs who believed in open-source defense. No shadows, no secrets, everything transparent. The distributed network is operational, Carla announced, her voice echoing in the vast space. Around us, 50 engineers worked on different aspects of the same project, autonomous defense systems that couldn't be centrally controlled. How's the chaos algorithm? I asked. Beautifully unpredictable. Each node makes independent decisions based on local threat assessment. No central command means no single point of failure or control. It was the opposite of everything I'd built before. Where Ghost Hawk had been about precision control, Free Fall was about controlled chaos. Where Phoenix had sought to predict and prevent, we sought to adapt and respond. Mr. Petrov? A young engineer named Jason approached nervously. There's someone here to see you. Says she's from the Pentagon. I found General Morrison in our makeshift conference room, looking older than when I'd last seen him at the Phoenix demonstration. The weight of knowing how close we'd come to losing freedom had aged him. General, I greeted him. Come to shut us down? Come to fund you, he said, surprising me. Congress approved a special allocation, $500 million for free fall development. We're open source. Anyone can access our code, including enemies. That's the point, Morrison said. If everyone has the same defense capabilities, no one has advantage. Mutual defense through mutual transparency. That's very enlightened for the Pentagon. We're learning. Webb taught us that shadows breed monsters. Maybe it's time for some sunlight. He left a contract on the table, not demanding ownership, just asking for cooperation. It was everything Ghost Hawk should have been from the start. That evening, Carla and I worked late, as we had every evening for months. But tonight felt different. The hangar was quiet, most engineers gone home, and we found ourselves alone with our creation. We did it, she said softly. We actually built something incorruptible. Nothing's incorruptible, I corrected. But we made it harder. That's all we can do, make it harder for the next Webb, the next Phoenix. She moved closer, and I realized how natural it had become, this partnership. Somewhere between Baltimore and Amarillo, between destruction and creation, we'd become more than colleagues. I've been thinking, she said, about what comes after free fall, after we've built this distributed defense network. What comes after? Life, she said simply. Regular life. The kind where you don't check for bombs under your car or wonder if your coffee's been poisoned. That sounds nice, I admitted. Foreign, but nice. Maybe we could try it together. I looked at her brilliant, brave Carla who'd stood by me through everything, who'd believed in the mission when I'd lost faith, who'd helped me build something better from the ruins of something corrupted. I'd like that, I said. She kissed me then, in that hangar full of defensive chaos, and for the first time since Milena's death, I felt something other than guilt or rage. I felt hope. My phone buzzed, it always did at the worst moments. Anna's number. Last cell neutralized, the message read. Phoenix is dead. The Guardians can rest. I showed Carla the message. It's over. No, she said, looking at the freefall prototypes around us. It's just beginning. Phoenix is dead, but the idea of Phoenix control, prediction, dominance, that's eternal. Someone will always try to build it. And we'll always be here to stop them. We'll build systems that stop themselves, she corrected. That's the beauty of chaos, it's immune to control. Chapter 12. The cemetery in Fort Worth was quiet in the pre-dawn darkness. just me and the ghosts and the Texas wind that never seemed to rest. Milena's headstone was simple, just her name, dates, and beloved daughter. Her parents hadn't known what else to put. How do you summarize a life that was equal parts love and betrayal, sacrifice and deception? I placed white roses on her grave, her favorite, though I'd only learned that from her recordings. There was so much I'd never known about my wife, so much she'd hidden to protect me or herself or both. "The last Phoenix cell is gone," I told her headstone. "Your intelligence saved thousands of lives, maybe millions." The wind answered, carrying the scent of coming rain. "I understand now," I continued, "why you did it. All of it. You saw the danger before I did, knew the only way to fight shadows was to become one." I touched the cold marble. "I forgive you, Mill. I hope you can forgive me too." She already did. I turned to find Anna standing a respectful distance away, dressed in black as always, looking like she belonged among the graves. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough." She moved closer, studying Milena's headstone. "She talked about you constantly in those last days, not the anger or betrayal, but the early days, when you were just two people in love, before the weight of secrets crushed you both. Were you with her when—" "I was monitoring. We tried to intervene, but Webb's people were faster." She paused. Her last words were about you. She said, "Tell him the ghost was love, not fear." I didn't understand then, but standing there in the cemetery, I thought I did. The ghost that had haunted our marriage wasn't the secret of my wealth or her betrayal. It was love, invisible but always present, powerful enough to survive even death. "What will you do now?" I asked Anna. "With Phoenix gone?" "Watch. Wait. There's always another Phoenix, another Webb, another threat to freedom." She smiled slightly. "But there are also always people like you and Carla, building better systems, choosing chaos over control. Will I see you again?" "Probably not. Guardians work best invisible." She turned to leave, then paused. "Your father would be proud. You completed his work, but more importantly, you understood his choice. Freedom over safety. Always." Then she was gone, vanishing into the cemetery shadows like the ghost she was. I stayed until the sun rose, painting Fort Worth in shades of gold and possibility. The city was waking up, people starting their days unaware of how close they'd come to losing the freedom to choose those days for themselves. My phone rang. Carla. "Where are you?" she asked, worry in her voice. "Saying goodbye," I said, touching Milena's headstone one last time. "Ready to say hello to something new?" "Yeah," I said, walking toward the cemetery exit, toward the rising sun, toward a future that was uncertain and chaotic and free. "I'm ready." Back at the freefall hangar, the team was already assembled. 50 engineers, programmers, dreamers, all working toward a vision of defense that trusted people to protect themselves rather than surrendering that protection to shadows. "Morning, everyone," I addressed them, Carla at my side. "Today we launched the first node of the freefall network. Today we proved that transparency beats secrecy, that chaos beats control, that freedom beats safety." They cheered, these brilliant minds who'd chosen uncertainty over the comfort of traditional defense contracts. "But remember," I continued, "we're not just building technology. We're building a philosophy. Every line of code should ask, does this empower or enslave? Does this distribute or centralize? Does this trust or control?" "What about profit?" someone called out, getting laughs. "Profit is survival," I said. "But survival without freedom is just another kind of death. We've seen what happens when defense becomes about profit over people. Phoenix showed us that future. We're building a different one." The work began, as it did every day, with controlled chaos. No central planning, no top-down directives. Each team pursued their own solutions, sharing discoveries, building on each other's work. It was messy, inefficient, gloriously human. "You know this will never work perfectly," Carla said quietly, watching the organized chaos. "Perfect systems are brittle," I replied. "They shatter when reality doesn't match their predictions. Imperfect systems bend, adapt, survive." "Speaking of imperfect," she said, pulling up news on her tablet. "The congressional report on Ghost Hawk and Phoenix just released. You're officially cleared of all charges, but they're recommending new oversight for defense contractors. Good. Oversight means light. Light means no shadows for the next Phoenix to grow in. They're calling you a hero, she added. The genius who sacrificed everything to stop Phoenix. I'm not a hero, I said, thinking of Milena, of my father, of Anna and her guardians. I'm just someone who learned that the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. That safety is worth freedom. That control is worth chaos. That secrets keep us safe. And now? Now we tell the truth. All of it. Every failure, every success, every line of code. We build in the open and trust people to use it wisely. And if they don't, then we adapt. We evolve. We survive. I looked at her, this brilliant woman who'd helped me build something better from the ashes of something corrupted. Together. She smiled, and we turned back to the work of building a freer future. Around us, the free-fall network took shape, not perfect, not controlled, not predictable, just human, messy, and honest. Outside, Fort Worth stretched toward the horizon, a city of millions living their imperfect, chaotic, free lives. They didn't know about Phoenix or Ghost Hawk or the choice between safety and freedom. They just lived, loved, failed, succeeded, and chose their own paths. That was what we'd fought for. Not perfect safety or controlled peace, but the right to be imperfect, unpredictable, human. The ghost had risen, Webb had said. He was right, but it wasn't the ghost of control or fear. It was the ghost of choice, and it would never rest. I thought of my father, dying to prevent a controlled future, of Milena, betraying me to save me, of Webb, so convinced that order was worth any price. They were all ghosts now, haunting the edges of every decision. But ghosts could guide as well as haunt. They could remind us of prices paid, lessons learned, futures avoided. The Phantom prototype sat in the corner of the hangar, the original Ghost Hawk unit we'd recovered from federal storage. Dead technology now, a reminder of what happened when brilliance served secrecy instead of freedom. Should we destroy it? Carla had asked when it arrived. No, I'd decided. We keep it. Remember it. Learn from it. Now I stood before it, this machine that had started everything. It had been built to be perfect, autonomous, controlled. Instead, it had become the key to Phoenix, nearly enslaving the world it was meant to protect. Your name was more prophetic than I knew, I told it. You really were a ghost, invisible, powerful, dangerous, but ghosts are just memories given form. And memories can teach or torment, depending on how we hold them. The prototype didn't answer. It was just metal and circuits now, its quantum core dead, its potential exhausted. But the lessons it taught lived on in every line of free-fall code, every distributed node, every choice to trust chaos over control. The sun climbed higher, flooding the hangar with light. No shadows here, no secrets, just the messy, beautiful work of building something better. Ready? Carla called from her workstation. Ready, I confirmed. She initiated the launch sequence. Across the country, the first 100 free-fall nodes came online independent, unpredictable, free, each one capable of defending against threats, but incapable of being turned into a threat itself. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was honest. And after a lifetime of perfect lies, honesty, messy, chaotic, imperfect honesty felt like freedom. The ghost had risen. The prototype had served its purpose. The future was unwritten, and I wouldn't have it any other way. This story hit differently because it shows how our need to protect those we love can become the very thing that destroys them. Nikolai and Milena were both so busy keeping secrets for each other that they never realized they were being played by someone else entirely. Makes you wonder, in our own relationships, how many problems come from trying to protect people from truths they already know. The real betrayal wasn't the secrets they kept, but the trust they never gave.